Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben.
This is Diego Sanchez, Randy Couture,
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 200. That's right, Submission Radio is back for 2020, the beginning of the decade. Dennis Shkru out of here with Kasper Ozolowski. If this is the first time that you're tuning in, you chose a good episode because this is the milestone. Episode 200. Kasper, it's been a lot of trips, a lot of live coverage, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of bumps along the road, but here we are, we made it to 200. I mean, here we are.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks to the listeners every week for tuning in, putting up with our breaks, starting, stopping, coming back, all the amazing guests that have come on the show. There were times where I didn't think we'd reach this. I mean, starting this in 2014, doing interviews like 5 in the morning before going to work, before going to our regular jobs, and almost 6 years later, 6-year anniversary, by the way, coming up in 2 months. How about that? I mean, Jesus, that's longer than a lot of marriages, right? Longer than a lot of relationships. But here we are. And sexy guests as well. Bas Rutten joining us on the program. Ariel Helwani, Israel Adesanya. I couldn't think of a sexier lineup for episode 200, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we looked at people that have meant, special things to us as we put together episode 200. And we wanted to keep it sort of, I suppose,
exclusive, invite only.
Exclusive, yeah, smaller, exclusive, more meaningful. And mind you, there were a couple of other names that couldn't make the cut this week. I'm sure they'll be on later on down the track. But 3 names that actually mean quite a lot to us. Bas Rutten is a guy that's been with us pretty much since I think like the 4th episode in 2014. Cass, like this guy. We've have over 100 emails with behind the scenes, and he kind of represents a guy that's been with us through the whole journey no matter what, and has really given a lot to Submission Radio. Not to mention he's an absolute icon. We can't wait to speak to him about that.
He's a ride or die kind of guy,
He's a ride or die. People don't actually realize because he's an absolute legend, but behind the scenes he is definitely one of the classiest and nicest guys that we've dealt with, and someone that's been on so many episodes of Submission Radio. So he had to be on. I think he kind of represents that on this episode. Ariel Helwani, he's a guy that gave us a big break at UFC 193. He put us on his pre-show, on his post-show. He's also been, full of advice and things behind the scenes, and someone that we look up to. Before we got into this game, Ariel was doing his thing, and without a doubt, he is one of the biggest names, one of the GOATs when it comes to doing media and MMA, and absolutely killing it right now. So it meant a lot to us to have him on this program so we can go through that. And Kasper, Israel Adesanya, I believe he represents the future of, sort of what we've been up to, the future of this region, and someone that, also been great for the program, giving us props at the press conference, the champion right now representing Oceania, Australasia. So it's only fitting to have him on the show.
And also being super gracious with his time, like ahead of some of the biggest fights in his career, like Anderson Silva and Robert Whittaker in Melbourne, allowing us to jump in his hotel room, do exclusive interviews and things like that. And obviously he's got this massive fight coming up against Yoel Romero at UFC 248, the next chapter in his career. So we had to get him on to talk about that. There's so much sentimentality with these guests, Bas Rutten, Ariel Helwani, and Israel Adesanya. So I can't wait, man. So much to chat to these guys about. Of course, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Submission Radio. You can DM us. You can chat to us anytime you like. And, really at the end of the day, it's because of you guys that are tuning in, listening, and being so positive with your comments and your feedback and everything, week in and week out. I always say, I think between us and the Believe You Me podcast, we have probably the most positive comment sections going around on YouTube. It's unbelievable for a couple of guys, a couple of nobodies from Australia to have so much positivity from you guys. It always blows our minds every week.
Yeah, it's crazy, Cass, because we get people coming up and saying, Submission Radio this, or Submission Radio that, in everyday life. And do you guys work for Submission Radio? It's like the brand has sort of outgrown the podcast because people see a headline here, a video there, a video here. But the crazy thing is, after all these years, it's just you and me doing it all. You and me doing the show, you and me running the socials, you and me putting out the clips. You'd think there's a whole team behind it, but it's really just you and me. It's homegrown, and it's stayed that way up to episode 200. So I think it's a crazy fact that people don't realize. I just want to quickly say, I remember when we first started this show, many years ago, and we're coming up to the 6-year anniversary, sort of a little anecdote, I was starting a job, or I was working a job that a lot of people would have been happy in, but it just didn't kind of fit who I was. You were doing stuff you were happy with, but also sort of striving to do something special. And we just said, hey, we're just going to do this. We're going to do this submission radio thing. We're just going to jump in. We're going to do it. We're going to give it a crack because we're passionate about it. It's something that we love. And I know a lot of people message us and they'll say, hey, I really want to do this. Do you guys have like an internship or a job or anything like that? And we always respond personally to these people. We try to give them as much advice as we can. But the advice is this. If you're listening right now, you're sitting in your office, you're sitting in your desk, you're sitting, you might be working at a retail shop or on the way to the supermarket. Our message to you is this. If you're passionate about something, look, life is short. We saw Kobe Bryant unfortunately passed away just the other day, massive icon of mine, still reeling from that, still dealing with that. But it shows you life is short. And if there's something that you're passionate about, don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity.
That's true.
Go out there and do it. Don't waste your life. And Joe Rogan has said this 100 times, and I'm a big believer in this, Cass, and I believe you too. You are as well. You can make money at a desk job. You can do the safe options. But if it's not something you're passionate about, that money will not make it worthwhile enough for you to then look back and be like, oh, hey, look, I bought a new car, but I wasted 8 years of my life behind a desk doing something that I hated. Back yourself. You have a limited amount of time on this earth. Go do what you want. If there's one message that you can take away from me from this podcast is look at me and Casper. We do something that we love. We travel to the States. We cover the shows thanks to you guys. Thanks to Musashi, our sponsor out there. But we did it by going out there and just taking a chance on ourselves, investing back in ourselves. Some lean times for me and Casper, sometimes here and there. Comments, people saying you guys suck, you guys are this, you guys are that, still happens to this day. But at the end of the day, pushing through and believing in ourselves, but at the end of the day, doing something that we're passionate about. What are you passionate about? It doesn't have to be MMA. Whatever it is, go out there, take a chance on yourself. Look at us, use us as an example. You guys can do it, whatever you want to do, short time, don't waste it. I think that's the big message from me here, Cass.
100%, because I think I want, and you're right, I want people to sort of, be inspired and realize that it's not like some big company came and we're like, hey, here's a studio, here's thousands of dollars of equipment, go for it, guys. It was literally like you and me, we went to, I think, JB Hi-Fi, bought microphones, and it's like one day Submission Radio didn't exist, and the next day it did. That's it. We had laptops and microphones, and we were just like, we're just going to do interviews. You put your marketing background to, crafting emails and getting guests and, a bit of hustling here, a bit of hustling there, but essentially it was just a couple of guys with microphones. That's it. So if you're ever thinking like, well, I don't have the money or the resources, it's like we had nothing, absolutely nothing. And we were working shitty jobs with not a lot of money. And, I don't want to make it sound like, well, here we are, but it's like we've been lucky enough to cover some of the biggest events in MMA, sitting cage side for, some of the biggest fights. And it all started with just a couple of microphones. I saw this quote the other day, and it was like, strength doesn't come from what you can do. It's from what you thought you couldn't do. And then doing it, something like that. And it's like, if someone thinks like we do this for the money, it's like, I'll tell you what, man, the money in MMA is absolutely fuck all. So if you're going to be doing stuff in MMA, just know that there's no job security, and you better be doing it out of passion, because you're probably not going to make a whole lot of money. And it makes you reflect on like, why do we do this? And I kind of see Submission Radio as like, well, it's fun, and it's about proving something to yourself. Interviews are hard, man. Interviews are harder than what they seem. There's so many things to juggle between, building a good rapport, giving people something fun to listen to and watch. Also, creating headlines. It's nerving. It's stressful. There's times where, you do an interview and you feel sick about it for days because you're like, that sucked. We wasted time. We didn't hit our goals, whatever. I know in New York, we did an interview with Dana White that I absolutely hated and lamented, and I thought, me personally dropped the ball massively, and I'm glad that we could have done a good one at UFC 246. So I guess Submission Radio is almost like, it's like training or going to the gym. It's like you see what you're made of, and then you fail, you fall, and then you go back, and then you fix those skills and you try and be better at it. So I don't want to say it's like a hobby, because that's selling it short, but it's definitely not for the money, that's for sure. And it's crazy to see you guys, being behind us and being so positive. And that's one of the reasons why we've been doing it for so long. Almost 6 years later, 200 episodes in.
Yeah, that's right. And I know we got Bas Rutten on the line, and we're going to be jumping over to him in just a second. But there's 1,000 reasons why you can't do something. Don't look at those things. Stop coming up with excuses. Go out there and do what you want to do. And before we jump to Bas Cass, and I have to thank, by the way, all the media members out there who have supported us over the years. You know, Ariel Helwani is on the show, but Luke Thomas has done an absolute phenomenal job of sort of being there for us. John Morgan has done an absolute phenomenal job of being there for us. All sorts of other media members who have pushed us along the way.
Can't forget sexy Brett Okamoto. There's so many
Brett
people, honestly,
Okamoto,
every website.
Out of his way. This is a guy working for ESPN MMA who finds the time to always speak to Submission Radio. It's absolutely unbelievable. You know, there's a lot of other OGs there, people like Casey, Esther, Mark, you know, Oscar Willis, all sorts of people, Jim Edwards, you know, all the people that have been with us along the way.
Bloody
people
Elbow,
like
MMA Mania. There's too many websites, MMA Fighting. There's too many websites to list. But all the people that do articles on our interviews every week, without them, we wouldn't be here.
Absolutely. What about Nate Wilcox? You know, seeing that Michael Bisping, Luke Rockhold video from our very first event, getting us together with SB Nation, Podcast One Australia for popping out this program to all the people in Australasia, making sure they check it out. We want to thank all of you, but most of all, and of course our families and friends and girlfriends, thank you so much for putting up with us and everything that we've done. Ash, never at home and all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate it. But Cass, the person that I want to thank the most is yourself. Because, man, it's like 9 out of 10 times, you know, I don't know if something like this could have worked out. Two guys, you know, trying to do the show together, trying to get all the ideas across, trying to work together. Of course, ours is a friendship from high school. But none of this would happen without you. And I want to thank you for being the perfect partner of crime and helping us get to episode 200. It wouldn't be possible without you, man.
Dude, likewise. You know, I feel like we're sort of yin and yang. I feel like we complement each other well. And I've no doubt when I say that I would not be able to do this show without you. You know, there's a lot of things that you bring to the table that are just irreplaceable and skills that I just don't have. And I don't know. I love it. At the end of the day, like, we're not work colleagues. We're best friends. We've been friends since I think 2002, year 7 in high school.
Crazy.
So to go through this and ride the wave and sort of, in a sense, you guys watching have seen, you know, a lot of the things that we go through, a lot of our experiences, some of our best or craziest or favorite moments, you know, in Submission Radio. You guys have been there with us the whole time, sort of witnessing and watching us. So we're just really happy that, you know, we can kind of go through this journey and just, you know, essentially work on a craft, that craft being interviews. We're not really analysts. We're not, I don't know, everyone kind of has their niche. I like to see us as a couple of guys who do fun interviews. And as long as you guys keep watching, we'll keep pumping out content and doing the best we can to sort of do good interviews and also put Aussie MMA media on the map. So a massive thanks to everybody. With that, it's rude to keep people on the line. It's funny, we were like, oh, it's going to be a quick intro, just kind of get straight into it. Bas Rutten here, waiting on the line, being very kind and very patient, as he's always been. Without further ado, guys, don't forget, drop your comments in the comment section below. Let us know what you think about any part of the show. Without further ado, first guest is on the line, and Dennis, you're about to introduce him.
When we were putting together Submission Radio 200, we had to get this Hall of Famer, former UFC champion and MMA icon on. You've known him from his historic fights, movies, commentary, and broadcasting work, but he's also steadily been one of our favorite people to speak to on Submission Radio over the years. El Guapo himself, Bas Rutten. It's a real honor to welcome you to Submission Radio 200, man. Welcome to the program.
Congratulations, guys. That is so freaking awesome. 200 shows. What? How many shows you have a week?
We have one. Except when things go pear-shaped. But the thing is, we're going to be coming up on 6 years next month, 2 months from now. So 200 should have come a lot earlier, but here we go. It's here. And I think you were on one of our first episodes, maybe episode 3 or 4. So it just goes to show, man, we've been talking for like 6 years almost.
Yeah, that's so fun. You know, when you write an email and it's still the same email trail, when you go all the way back, you go like, whoa. Yeah, it goes all the way back. I think 2014 or something.
Yeah.
You know, so that's wild.
It is 2014. Great memory. Beg your pardon, Bas?
I said that means that you're doing something good, right? You're doing it for 6 years. People loving it.
Apparently so, man. People like yourself coming on and making Submission Radio look a lot better than we really are, but we really appreciate it. And you actually had a special milestone as well. Just I think it was just the other week. UFC 18, your UFC debut was just over 20 years ago. You took out Tsuyoshi Kosaka via TKO. I'm just wondering, what stands out to you from your memories of your first UFC fight?
Oof. I remember walking into the cage before the show started, and I go, man, this is going to be awesome. There's no way they can lock me up in the corner. I mean, it's giant. I mean, we're talking about 34 feet. I mean, that's 9 meters something. I mean, that's a big space. So I was very happy with that. I wasn't so happy about myself. Is that voice annoying in the background or not?
Which one? The leaf blower?
Yeah. Because I can open it if you want.
It's up to you, Matt. It's up to you. It's not the best. It's not the best thing in the world, but we can deal with it.
We can deal with it. Look at this. Look at this. What I'm gonna do. Look, what mobile.
Wow.
That's not having a laptop. Whoa.
Wow.
It's no problem at all now.
Thank you.
So yeah, no. What stands out? Oh yeah, I had an injury. You know, I was training with Daryl Golar. He was an old UFC fighter as well. He was a really good wrestler, and I got him in a triangle like 2 weeks before the fight, and he decided to lift me up and slam me in the corner. So my whole neck was jacked up, and I had to fight Kosaka. You know, so I could the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I couldn't do any takedown defense because I didn't want to risk anything with my neck. So I was a little nervous about that. But you know, once the fight started catching there, and once I started getting his timing down, you know, then I started to get in control. The coolest thing is, and you can read this also, and I have to say this because I think I thought it was really cool. You can read this in Big John McCarthy's book. I'm walking back to the corner. So this is weird, right? So I always believed that the nose bone into the brain, that's just a myth. Yeah. You know, and somehow the day before of the day or the day on the fight, somebody tells me, yeah, it is a myth, but if your nose is already broken, you know, no, that was the Kevin Randleman fight when he broke my nose. Yeah. But anyway, what I wanted to say about that is, I'm completely messed up right now. What I want to say, in the minute break, I had a minute or 3 minute overtime. I had a minute break. I went to the corner and I tell my corner, I said, I got him figured out. Just shout when I have 1 minute left. I'm going to knock him out. Wow. And I turn around, and Big John McCarthy looks at me. He stares at me. Just heard me saying that. He has a big smirk on his face. He turns around and he walks away like laughing, like, yeah, right. So then when you hear the fight, you hear 1 minute, and 10 seconds later, I knocked him out. And he actually gave me his shirt, what he was wearing in the octagon. He goes, dude, I heard you say it. And then you actually did it. It was crazy. So he gave me his shirt that he was wearing as a referee on that particular show. That's pretty cool. So Big John McCarthy's show, was that kind of like a sign of honor to you? Like, here's the shirt off my back kind of thing? Yeah, it really was. You know, I always liked Big John, you know, and Elaine, his wife, you know, that's just great people. So I thought that, I think if you ever talk about MMA and how we got there, you know, all the rules, I think this guy is super important. If he wouldn't have been there, I mean, he was the first guy also who said, listen, if I can't step in, I'm out of here. You know, because somebody's going to die, right? In the first UFCs, the corner could throw in the towel, but then you had guys like, for instance, Tank Abbott telling their corner that if you throw in the towel, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Yeah. So these guys, you know, they didn't want to throw it, and people got hurt. So then after the second show, I believe McCarthy said, it's either I can step in or I'm out. And thankfully, they respected him so much, they kept him. And yeah, he was there also with all the rules of mixed martial arts. He gave the name mixed martial arts. All that stuff comes from Big John McCarthy, man. He was instrumental. You know, I'm wondering, you mentioned that ahead of this fight, you were a little bit nervous because of your neck. Just in general for your fights, were you a guy that got very nervous before the fights? What was it like, you know, moments before you walked out there? You hear guys like, say, Cowboy, I think they talk about, you know, vomiting or wanting to vomit. I always wonder, like, how different guys deal with things, if everybody's nervous or if it's just some guys. How did you deal with it? You know, I've been always very honest to myself, and I'm really good in talking to myself. So if you really break it down, fighting, it's not dangerous at all. If you get knocked out, well, apparently you're not going to feel that. So you're knocked out, you're going to wake up. If you get in a submission, and yeah, you want your arm broken if it's an armbar, yeah, don't tap. But that would be stupid. You can tap. There's a referee. So if I get knocked out and somebody wants to give me a few extra shots, there's a referee. So if you really break it down, it's really not that that nerve-wracking. And what I always was focusing on.
I'd love to hear right now the people who cop liver shots from you right now as you're saying this.
Liver shot is different, right?
Yeah.
A liver shot, you're aware of the pain and you're excruciating pain. That's why I like to do it to people that I'm not really fond of, because it stays with them, But just be honest. And what I always knew is that at the moment the bell goes, and pretty much every fighter has this, I guess, as soon as it goes ding, it goes boop, and you're in that bubble. I call it always a bubble. I can hear my corner, his corner. That's the only people I focus on. And sometimes I hear conversations from the people ringside. It's funny because in Japan I would tell certain people what they were talking about during the fight. I go, you should pay attention. You were talking about the wedding you had over in Kyoto, whatever it was. But I would focus on their corner. That was my where my focus was. For instance, with Maurice Schmidt, he was in the corner of Kosaka. And I just wanted to give Chiyoshi Kosaka a right high kick when the 10 seconds went. I wanted to go with the right high kick. And Maurice, since he's a great striker, he recognized what I wanted to do. And he's shouting at Kosaka, watch out for the high kick. He sees me setting it up. And immediately I heard him, so I switched it into a straight punch. And that was the punch that started dropping him. And then I went on. And later on, I told Maurice, I say, you should shut up, dude. You're warning him. So I just switched it. He goes, yeah, you're probably the only guy who listens to the other kind, to the other corner. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I love hearing your thoughts on fighting. I remember when you said you just like positive vibes in the locker room and stuff like that. So much to learn for these young fighters that are listening to the interview right now. But while we're speaking of memories, we've been meaning to ask you about a story regarding Chael Sonnen that he told on his YouTube channel in May last year. So the story goes from Chael that after training at Team Quest around 2006, he made some comments about you in the media. And then a mutual friend said you were actually considering coming down Team Quest to maybe kick his butt. So for those who don't know the story, can you tell it from your perspective? What actually happened with Chael? And did you actually consider going down all the way there to kick his butt?
No, the thing was, I got a phone call and somebody said, what about Chael Sonnen? He's talking about you. I said, I have no clue who that is, because at the time Chael was not big at all. His name was not out there yet. So I go, can you call me back in 10 minutes? Let me do some homework, and so I know who the guy is. So, and then he calls me back in 10 minutes. I go, well, I'm looking at his record that, he wants to be the next Randy Couture. That was what he was talking about, but it's not going really well for him. So I guess the way for him to get a light on him, is to talk about fighters who actually are winning, So I kind of pushed a little back, I started pushing back. But for the rest, I thought he was just a loudmouth. I had no clue about Chael at that time. I thought he was just a douchebag, But Chael is once you meet Chael, he becomes your best friend. I'm telling you, he's a really good guy. And then he came over to Here Comes the Boom when we were filming that. And apparently Ryan Parsons, who also knows him, and I know him as well, he was my strength and conditioning guy in my last fight. He had told Chael that he needed to apologize to me, which I didn't know about, So one day we're walking back, and to the trailer, whatever we're doing, and suddenly he catches up with me and says, can I talk to you? I was such an idiot a long time ago. I said, Chael, you saw what I wrote back, I just fired back. I just left it at that. I said, I had no clue for the rest. And he made a really smart joke. I forgot what he did in the beginning, because first of all, I thought, is he continuing? But then I saw the smirk on his face, and I realized, he's just messing with me, and that is Chael. I remember he had a big problem with Kenny Rice. He was talking really bad about Kenny Rice, and Kenny was furious. And then Kenny had to work with him. And I told Kenny, I said, you know what's going to happen? You're going to work with him, and you're going to call me, and he's going to be your best friend. And he goes, there's no way. And right away, a half an hour in, he calls me and goes, you're so right. He's a good guy. I said, that's Chael, man. Chael is just he's a good guy. But he was like a Conor McGregor. You see? I don't get my fights. Let's start talking about people. That's spurring it up. So he was the first guy who actually, I would say Tito Ortiz in the beginning he started. Chael took it to the next level because he's really good with wording and how to prepare speeches. He was a little bit Ali-like and WWE-like. And then I think Conor took it again to an even higher level. I think Conor was freaking Ali. Every speech that he does, for me, if somebody's asking about a certain situation and I have 10 interviews, I will 10 times I will tell the same stupid story. Conor tells it 10 times different. That's a gift if you have that. And he used this gift well, and look where he's now right now.
Just before we move on, you mentioned how Chael sort of had a joke before he apologized to you. So apparently it went like this. He was walking back with you after finishing up, and here comes the boom. And he said something along the lines of, Bas, I said those comments about you, and I've noticed that you never thanked me for them. Something along those lines. And then apparently you folded your arms and you gave him the death stare. Is that what went down before you realized he was dead?
Is this guy serious now? Is it, continue? But then I could see by reading his face, he was just messing with me. And then we started laughing, and he goes, dude, I was just stupid. I said, let's forget about this whole thing. And bada bing, bada boom, suddenly we were friends.
I get the sense that there was never, because I know that when he told this story, it was like Bas Rutten was going to kick my ass. I get the sense that there was never really, you never really had that feeling. But have you had a situation like that with any other fighter or anyone for that matter, a manager, a celebrity, anyone, where something happened, someone said something, and you were like, I need to kick this guy's ass to teach him a lesson?
I had those situations, but most of the time when I make the step towards it, then apology comes, And thankfully, I never had to do it. I did, and actually, I'm writing this talk that I'm doing for Lent for here at the church, and where I came from and what happened, and I was very sick as a kid. I had a horrible skin disease, so I was bullied a lot because they called me a leper, and watch out, your ears don't fall off, and all that kind of stuff. So once I knew how to fight, once I saw the Bruce Lee movie, I started training, and then I started training with adults. Another adult took me under the swing with Taekwondo, and I started dropping adults. And then I overheard these adults talking about me in the dressing room, and I never heard any positive feedback about myself. It was always negative. And suddenly these guys are telling each other that, my God, this kid Bas is really good, So then I got into a street fight with the biggest bully in town. They shouted against something with my leprosy, whatever they said. And this time I shouted something back. So they started to chase me, but I said, no, I'm not going to. I put my bike on the stand. They surrounded me with their bikes, like little kids, like in a badass movie. It's with cars right in the middle of the night with the headlight. And this was with cars during the day. And then the biggest bully started bouncing his chest into me. I don't know what that meant. And then challenging me. So I knocked him out with one shot. And that changed 95% of the bullying. And then I started thinking, wait a minute. That guy bullied me. That guy bullied me. So I started putting down a list, making a list.
Kill Bill.
And I went after everybody. Yeah, I went after everybody. Some of them were so sad that I just slapped them with the hand. Because they would say, yeah, I don't even remember what I said. I said, but that's the worst thing. What do
you mean you went after them? Like, was it like a taken thing? Like, did you track them down and then?
No, I know who they were. It was just in school. I would wait after school or in the break or whatever. I would say, hey, remember that? Bonk. And I would knock them out.
Wow.
I was so, what people don't realize, and what I tell everybody always, I guess, but thankfully I never got a beating because I was always physically strong, although I was very skinny, but I was always strong. But I think I rather would have a beating than words. Like the words that they say and the way they hurt you, that always stayed with me. Maybe like 10 years ago was finally then when I found out to shake certain trigger words still. If people would still say certain words that they said when I was a kid, I go, whoa, we got to relax, boss, but I want to knock the guy out.
Wow.
So then you can see what it does to you after 30, 40 years to still be inside your head just by saying certain things, So for him to say, I don't even remember what I said, yeah, that made me angry as well, of course. I go, because it really hurt me at the time. So that's why I tell people, watch out with words, It's you can ruin people with it.
Yeah. 100%. Dennis and I obviously know that ourselves firsthand, but it's funny because, when you were in school and sort of getting your feet under you and learning martial arts, you would not have developed that reputation yet as this guy can, kick your ass. Eventually you would have, but once you were an MMA fighter, UFC champion and stuff like that, everybody knew Bas Rutten, he's not really a guy that you'd want to fight, unless it's in the octagon. Did you have that as an MMA fighter? You mentioned sometimes you would go up to people and then they would apologize. Is there a funny story where you went up to someone and you genuinely were going to kick their ass and then it almost came to it but then didn't?
No. Listen, it's very hard to get a fight with me. I'm the guy who keeps apologizing and I say, hey, can you want a beer or something? I don't want to do this, and then, but until somebody starts thinking that I'm afraid, and then I look in their eyes and, they say something in a certain way. I go, whoa, I'm not saying this for me, dude. I'm saying this for you. I don't want to beat your face in and spend the night at the police station. I don't want to go over this, but I'm not afraid of you. I just don't want to fight. It makes no sense why we have to fight. If there's a reason, yeah, I will fight you. But this is so stupid what we're talking about. And most of the time when you talk like that, they realize, it is a stupid reason. When you go out, 90% of the fights, the people who are drunk. Oh, he looked at my wife. Well, that's kind of a compliment. Did he touch her? No. Did he talk to her? No. I go, So you're angry because they looked at your wife. What? If they look at your wife, they go like, ooh, you want them to do that? No, of course not. Your wife is pretty and they look at your wife, so see it as a compliment. Now, once they start neglecting you and they know you're with that woman and then they still start coming on, now I can understand you're getting angry. But boy, everybody gets angry just because they look. It makes no sense. That's why as a bouncer, from the 10 fights there were 9 of them was no fight, because I would always diffuse the situation. I would simply break it down. I would always say, what happened? And once you start breaking things down, everybody realizes, that was really stupid what we're doing. Until this day, I'm doing it. People in the car, if they keep honking the horn, if I don't drive right away after 2 seconds, I get out of the car. And I put my hands always up. I say, just want to talk. And I say, was that necessary?
Wow.
Was that really necessary? You couldn't go, bloop. You never make any mistake. And then they look at you and they go, yeah, I'm sorry, it's stupid. I go, that's the only thing I'm saying. Bye, have a great day. And then I'm off again,
Must be the tats on the hands.
Yeah, some people, man. I had this guy here. I was standing on a hill behind him, and he was in a Corvette, one of the guys with the midlife crisis, the earring and the flat top hair, and all the, the pager, and the tight shirt and belt. And I saw him looking in my mirror, in his mirror at me, and I go, what is going on, And then suddenly it turns green, and he keeps deadlocking in his mirror, looks at me, and he goes super slow. But I had a Panamera at the time, so I go, whoop, and I pass him, and I just drive on. Now he starts chasing me. So right away, I have to go in my neighborhood here. So I stop on the middle of the road to go in, and he's flashing his horn, so I get out of the car. And right away, when I walked up to him, he realized he misjudged the situation. I go, what's going on? You're shining your freaking lights in my car. I go, dude, I was standing on a hill behind you. Have you have any idea? And he's looking at me and go, yeah, think about that. I'm standing on a hill. What do you think is going to happen with you purposely think that you think I'm purposely try to beam my light in your car. For what would I do that? And while I was talking to him, he goes, yeah, that's really stupid. I go, just think, dude, just think. I mean, 10 years ago, this would have been a whole different conversation. I probably would have pulled you out of the car. I toned down a lot right now. So, and I just do that for them to not do it in the future anymore to other people, because they can make a wrong decision with the wrong kind of guy. And they're in trouble.
I'll tell you what, man, there should be a Bas Rutten traffic lessons program on TV right now. Reality show where you teach these people how to have some manners on the roads. And I think we might have to put it towards a few networks down here in Australia, because there's a few crazy drivers down here as well. But while we go from your anniversary at UFC 18, we want to look at UFC 246, man, because just the other week, another iconic moment in MMA history went down as Conor McGregor made his return at 170. It only took 40 seconds, but what did you learn from seeing McGregor's return? Some people are saying it wasn't long enough to really learn anything, and other people are saying, this is a masterful performance by Conor McGregor.
Yeah, well, about all these other skills, it wasn't long enough for that. But that he worked on those shoulder strikes, and it paid off, and he dropped him with it. So I think it was perfect. I was very smart, to right away to hit that in there, the few shoulder strikes, which completely messed up Cerrone. And everybody goes, oh, it was a bloody nose. If it's a bloody nose, there was some impact. And we always talk about this, right? Everybody repeats the same thing. Everybody has a game plan until they get hit, or the punch that you don't see coming is probably the one that's going to knock you out, because you can brace yourself, or you can go with the punch. Your brain is not ready for it, and so it's disconnected, and you go out. And that's, I think, exactly like that it happened. He hit with the shoulder strikes. He was already mentally messed up. Yeah, and from that moment on, Conor stopped picking him apart. But it was all trained for. I mean, this was what Conor did in the preparation for his fight. I know 100%, and he pulled it off perfectly. So, for me, that was a masterful performance.
It's interesting hearing you say masterful performance. Obviously, Stephen A. Smith, huge personality on ESPN, sort of disagreed, and he was saying that he was disgusted with the performance, that Conor showed nothing. As someone who's done it all in the sport, obviously a fighter, commentator, host, I'm just wondering what you thought of those comments. Did you sort of take it with a grain of salt because you know who Stephen is and how he sort of rolls, or did you think that sort of, there should have been more respect shown?
He has no clue what he's talking about. He's never been there, right? So he doesn't know. And like I said, the punch that you don't see, he was to say that about Cerrone. Cerrone is one of the toughest guys we know. Everybody knows that. He takes fights on a week notice. I mean, the guy's insane. He always fights. He was not afraid. He got dizzy. He got dazed. Something happened to him, his nose. And it's not only a bloody nose. No, it's something happened to the brain. You know, I've seen fights in where somebody gets hit like tuk, and he go down. He go, oh, really? Yeah. Well, I have been workouts that I'm filming and I've been sparring. And then, you know, I go, wow, like in the second round, this guy hit me hard. So when I look back, I want to see the punch. And I thought, I'm going to see the sweat on my face pump off. And then there's nothing. It's like a dink. And I go, that was it? That was literally the punch. But it's something that you don't respect, you don't understand. And then suddenly when it happens, when you don't know it's coming, yeah, it can really set you up. And for a guy like that to talk like that, it's just really dumb. I would say, you know, go to a boxing gym, experience one time. Let Conor do it to him. But then again, now he knows he's going to do it, so he's going to be ready for it. You have to understand that Cerrone had no clue that it was going to come. And out of the blue, there's a shoulder strike. Well, the hands were not close. Nothing was close. And suddenly he gets hit. Yeah, that can really do something to your brain, set you off, unbalanced. And from that moment on, yeah, Conor just took over. So, yeah, people like that, if they never been in a fighting situation and never been hit hard, you know, or hit very gentle and then still be dazed, because all boxers, every professional fighter has the same story as me. You know, they get hit and they thought, oh, that was a big hit. And then when you look it back, it's a really tiny little punch. And you go, wow, that was so crazy. So, yeah, unless you've experienced that, you should not talk about it because he has no clue what he's talking about. And it's a shame, you know, because he's a great reporter. But it doesn't mean if you're a great reporter that you're automatically understand. Oh, I did boxing, he said. And I did it. Yeah, but still, you haven't been there. It's like you remember with in the beginning of MMA, there were the inverted but heel hooks. People were laughing. They go, oh, this guy tapped because he grabbed his leg. I broke a guy's shin bone in half in Japan in a fight with a heel hook by accident. Yeah, that's what a heel hook does. And if you tell somebody, oh, I lost my toe hold. Oh, toe hold. Yeah, I always go. I'm like, don't let the name fool you. It's not like this is my toe and you're going to hold it like this. No, I saw John Lober fighting a guy that I fought in Japan, and he got a toe hold on him, and he broke his shin bone in half as well. So they're very powerful moves. Yet on the outside, it looks like, why is he tapping? Because they don't understand it. And I think that is the same case in this situation. He just doesn't understand that a light shot, an unexpected shot can really do something to somebody's brain. And that sets him off. And then from that moment, it's all going downhill, of course.
I was going to say, obviously, you're a fantastic commentator and broadcaster, you know, PFL, Inside MMA, everything that you do. But I'm just wondering, like, Stephen A., like you mentioned, you know, there's a difference between talking about basketball or football and then speaking about fighting and saying a guy like Cowboy Cerrone gave up and his performance was atrocious while he's on his way to the hospital with a broken nose and a possible broken orbital bone. He went on social media and he sort of doubled down on his comments. He responded to Joe Rogan, and then Conor McGregor responded and said, you know, apologize for those comments, because I guess it at a certain level, it becomes personal in a sport like this. I know you mentioned it before, but do you think guys like Stephen A. Smith who don't understand the sport should be allowed to make this kind of commentary on major broadcasts after the fight finishes, now that it's on ESPN?
No, I think that was wrong, you know, and I think you lose, and because I read some things when you guys said maybe we're going to touch on this, but he's not backing down. He's constantly saying it, and for him not to understand that, I'm pretty sure I'm not the first person who gave the same analogy, right? It cannot be. I mean, it's not like I know it all. No, everybody knows this. You know, you can get hit in a really little tap, you know, but if you don't understand it, when you get hit, that can really set you off. And if you don't understand that, you shouldn't talk about it. But this is typical. This is what we see in politics. This is what we see everywhere right now. You know, a lot of people talk before they actually know. How many times? I think it was with you guys one time. You wrote a headline. I said something about Jon Jones, and the way you worded it was like people go like, "What did he say?" So they click on it, but some people didn't click on it, and they just read the headline. And I got an avalanche of crazy things. And the only response I had, I said, "Listen to the interview." And then, yes, 50% of all these guys, they came out and said, I'm so sorry. I said, don't believe the headlines. Just click on it, watch it for yourself. And then once you see it, you know, then you understand that I didn't say that, you know, and it's, but that's the way of marketing works. And we do it. I do it. Everybody does it, you know, but we're hoping that people just click on it, not just right away see that statement. And a statement you can take out of context as well. right? That's why we're texting with my daughters. If they're in a fight with somebody, I say, pick up the phone. Because everything you say right now, even if you say, yeah, I like you very much, well, that can be like, yeah, I like you very much. You know, I mean, you can pick everything the wrong way. And until you don't know that, don't talk about it. You know, watch it and see what happens.
I remember you speaking about Jon Jones multiple times on our show and sort of clarifying comments and stuff like that. That's why people have to listen to the full interview. And just for record, we don't write articles. We do the video, we do the audio, all that kind of stuff. We're not the ones actually writing any of the articles. But I wanted to ask you, Bas, you know, when you look at sort of Conor McGregor coming off this win, especially at welterweight, you know, what do you think should be next for him? There's so many options. People are talking about Masvidal. Conor's sort of interested in maybe fighting for the title at some point. There's the Khabib rematch. There's Justin Gaethje, who, you know, there's Nate Diaz trilogy potentially. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. What do you think should be next for him?
You know, I think if he's a smart man, he does Pac-Man, right? I mean, that's not $80 million in his pocket because this guy's a great promoter. But, you know, I think he loves to collect belts, right? Masvidal, man, you got the BMF title. Then you have 2 UFC titles in 2 different weight classes, and you have the BMF title. I think that's pretty cool. And Masvidal, he's a handful. You know, this guy's super explosive. I mean, look at him. If his last 7 fights, I believe, is 1 decision. The rest is all knockouts. And he fought some great guys. So, I think that would be a fight that could probably beat any record. I truly believe that, especially because the way they hyped it up. You know, with Diaz and Masvidal, and everybody was watching this show. Now we mentioned McGregor against Masvidal, because Masvidal, I mean, he's got over 1 million followers as well, I saw. I mean, I think that's going to be a super big pay-per-view if they do that. And then the smart move for him would also be, of course, Manny Pacquiao. I think that's great. It depends on what weight, not 145. I think he's way too skinny at 145. He shouldn't fight like that anymore. I mean, I saw him one time well, everybody see him at the weigh-in, right? I mean, that simply looks unhealthy. I wouldn't do that. And by the way, I heard also that the reporter said that he didn't do anything in boxing. McGregor, was that true? That he said he didn't respect him for what he did in boxing?
As in Stephen A. Smith did?
Yeah, did he say that as well? Because I go like, whoa, wait a minute. This is a guy who fights his first pro boxing match, and he goes 8 rounds against Mayweather, who's undefeated. I mean, arguably one of the best boxers on the planet, you know? And to give him hell in the first 3 rounds, I think he did a phenomenal job. I think if he would have been in crazy shape, he would have gone the distance, actually. You know, going the distance with a guy like Mayweather, I think is pretty impressive. For your first fight ever, boxing, professional? Come on, man. See. You remember how all these fighters, all the boxers were saying he's not going to be able to hit him. Yeah. All of them said. I say, I take that bet, any amount you want. 100% he's going to get hit. What? We don't know how to hit a boxer? Are you stupid now? You know, it's sometimes I don't understand comments. And he was giving him hell the first 2.5 rounds.
Whenever we talk about boxing, I just really wish that Mike Tyson Bas Rutten fight went down. That would have been. But then again,
Mike Tyson. No. Kickboxing, I might think about it. MMA, I'll do. But kickboxing, but still, even with the feet keeping him away. I mean, he was in a Starbucks somewhere, and this is like half a year ago. Somebody made a video. He was showing some kids how to move and to punch. And I'm telling you, man, very freaking scary to look at that guy. My whole fighting stance actually is based on Ramon Dekkers and Mike Tyson's stance, my square stance. Equal power in the left and in the right. I just pick out the best, strongest fighters that I believe there are, and I want to hit like them. And that's the way he can create so much power in his left and in his right, because he's squaring up. If you're blading, you're shutting down your whole left side. And in kickboxing, it's even dumber blading, because you can't block low kicks. There's a lot of things you cannot do. Why not stand a little bit more square? My inside low kick, no, you're probably going to have to check that inside low kick. But if I stand in a bladed position, you just can take it and counter with the right straight. But in my stance, now I can use upper body, and I can still develop a lot of power in that kick. Now it's a whole different ballgame, and a jab becomes a straight punch. If you hit somebody hard with your left, well, now you got his attention. So now it's going to be easier to set up openings. You hit him a few times really hard with the left, what they think is a jab, but they feel it's a straight punch. They go, okay. So yeah, that's why I love that stance so much, and that's why I love Mike Tyson so much. And the way he was moving after his combinations on that little tiny video, I go, whoa, that's a scary guy still to fight.
Well, I was going to say, when I was bringing that up, matchups make fights, and Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal, man, these are two top-level strikers. You could probably say these are two of the best strikers in the whole UFC right now. I'm just wondering, McGregor's known for his boxing, his left hand, but he's also got some good kicks, great reaction time. Jorge Masvidal as well. We saw that flying knee. This is a guy that's unpredictable. This is a guy that loves to be in the fight. This is a guy with a whole bunch of techniques, more sort of, I suppose, more kickboxing style, but still very, very interesting. How do you think break down the striking between the two for us? How do you think these guys match up? If you had to look at it early on right now, who do you think has the more effective striking style to win in this matchup?
Oh, yeah, it's a hard one because Masvidal grew so much in the last years in his striking, and he became so powerful and does that crazy flying knee with Ben Askren, and he works on something which we saw, and then he actually pulls it off. That's the same as what McGregor did with the shoulder punches. Worked on something and then he pulled it off. So I love Masvidal as well, and I love McGregor, both of them. I think striking-wise, I think technical-wise, I think McGregor is the better striker. With his hands for sure. His kicks are great, as we saw landing the left high kick, but I think Masvidal probably has some more power on it, because he will drive that kick through. But then again, Conor doesn't need that power because he knows exactly where he is at any moment. But his accuracy, that's McGregor's bread and butter, man. He's so accurate and he's so good in reading his opponent and moving out of the way and then coming in. Against Aldo. He was talking about it in the dressing room. There's a video that he says it. Oh, don't worry about it. It's going to even cost a minute. I'm going to knock him out fast. And then he actually does it, Prince Nassim Hamed. Remember that guy?
Yeah,
of course.
Boxer. Dude, I love that guy. He was same as McGregor, right? He was actually predicting. He would say, "I'm going to drop in the second round, 2.5 minutes in," and he would be like 10 seconds off. Most of the time, he would literally predict his knockout. So how can you say that a guy like that is not an unbelievable fighter? Because he knows when he has to pull the trigger. And McGregor, also hearing that before other fights against Khabib, he was still drinking like some whiskey the day before the fight, and now he really started toning out. I think also the fact that he's not so aggressive anymore in the conference before the fight, I think that's going to help him a lot, because any fighter who does that, you can say you don't care, but I'm telling you, man, I always tell my students, especially if they have the first fight, don't start begging down your opponent. I'm going to rip his head, I'm going to break his arm, because that video, they're going to play just before you're going to have to go up. And now you got your friends and family members there. And everybody sees you saying, I'm going to armbar him, I'm going to knock it, whatever you say, now you better do it. That's adding a lot of pressure on you. And pressure might make you, not flow anymore, because you get a little scared. Now I better do it. And guess what? Once you start thinking, watch out for this, you're going to get caught with it. The biggest example I always use was, I think my 5th fight or something in Japan. I thought, you know what? I'm not going to hit anything anymore. I'm going to fly out tomorrow. I'm going to go to the forest and I'm going to do a run in the forest. Idiot, right? Because there is roots and there's crazy things. And I'm walking. Suddenly I misstep and my ankle is completely blown. I have to fly to Japan the next day. And I'm there at least an hour because I just couldn't walk.
Wow.
I go, oh, dude, I'm going to do what am I going to do? But I start finally, I hopped over and I found my car, went back home, and I started forcing everything that I had. When I met everybody, hey man, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. But I was in pain, but I'm telling you, not my manager, nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want it to leak out. And I'm in the fight and I know 100%, nobody knew. And the first thing the guy jumps at was Vernon Tiger White. He jumps at that ankle and he puts it over. First freaking thing. And that's what I'm saying. If you're afraid for something to happen, it's almost like you're sending a signal out, something that his brain picks up, and they go, whoop, let's go after that. And that's what happened in that fight. I won, but the fact that he right away went for my ankle as the very first move, I thought that was weird.
Yeah, that's spooky stuff right there. Before we move on from the topic, the boxing fans would kill me if I didn't ask you. You mentioned Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. Just quickly, do you believe Conor McGregor could beat a guy like Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather if they do this boxing match this year?
Oh, I go Pacquiao. Yeah, it's a hard question. Pacquiao's in and out movement is so explosive, and he can cover such a big space every time. And that's his power. He's in and he's out, But McGregor is really good at distance, and I always talk about with fighters. I mean, actually, when Max Holloway lost to McGregor, we were talking about on Inside MMA about McGregor, and they said, "What about Holloway?" I said, "I think he's going to be a champion." And everybody looked at me and says, "Well, he lost." I go, "Yeah, but his footwork is insane. He has really good distance. You don't see that a lot, that people really control the distance. And what do you know? A couple of years later, he became the champion because he could control that distance. But McGregor is also a master at that, and he's got the long arms, he's got a good long reach, if he can keep him on the outside of his punches. But he has to watch out, of course, for the explosiveness of Pacquiao. Pacquiao's last fight, I mean, he looked like he was 10 years younger suddenly, right? He looked really good in that fight. So
looked suspiciously good, Bas. He looked suspiciously good.
Oh, yeah. Right? You get caught once, you're done. Yeah. Well, guys like that, they get tested all over the place. It's the same with Cyborg. We were talking about it yesterday. I 100% believe her. I believe that it wasn't intentionally taken. You know why? Because all the guys who get clipped, you see the next fight and they look completely different. They're all soft. There's no more veins. They're a different fighter. She never changed her appearance. And the last time, I think she got checked 6 times before the fight. There's nothing in her system. She looks exactly the same. She fights exactly the same. So I'm 100% believing her. I don't think she did it.
Do you think McGregor would beat Floyd in this rematch? Apparently, Floyd's talking to the UFC right now. Do you think of their rematch now that Conor knows what he's in for, the fight looks different, or do you think Floyd still picks up the win there?
He'll go the distance for sure. To beat a guy like Floyd, I mean, with his defense and the way he rolls with the punches of his opponent and counters, he's just a really good boxer, man. He's not the nicest guy, but, I mean, we can't say anything about his boxing. He's just a phenomenal boxer. So, but going the distance with Floyd, listen, if a big punch lands, yeah, of course, you can still have the power to knock him out. But, 15-0, man, that says it against the best fighters on the planet, the best boxers on the planet, not fighters, boxers. I think that it's hard to beat a guy like Mayweather, but you never know. McGregor can hit, man. He can hit, and now he's more confident. He already knew he could get 8 rounds. Now he's going to be in a better shape. If he knows he can go the distance, that does a lot to fighters mentally. It makes you much stronger.
Bas, the little message show reminded us that we should probably let you go because we're being greedy with your time. But obviously, we've got to ask you about Karate Combat because we've seen some of the marketing for it, and these events are looking pretty awesome. Something that you're obviously involved with. Just wondering what 2020 will look like for Karate Combat.
Well, it looks like later in February we're going to have a show, and they pulled all the stops out. It's going to be at a secret place. We're going to have a really great other announcer with us also. It's also going to be surprise guest announcer. It's going to be fun. Yeah. The whole atmosphere, what they do, like the underground comité from the 70s and 80s, the action movies, the video games, top flight Hollywood production values. I mean, it looks really badass. I think people love it. We're still working something with the rules. I just talked to the owner again, and he was thinking about maybe adding low kicks and knees. And I go, "Well, dude, that would be, please do that. That would be really cool." So he said, let's just see what we can do. I think that people love it. I love the ground and pound. That is legal, for 5 seconds. If they fall on the ground, you can just unload on your opponent for 5 seconds. There's no holding, no grappling, no nothing whatsoever. So that the strikes really rain down. I think I love it. I the way they present it, with the lighting and every time a different announcer. And I think they're really hard on their way. I would, for the people, go to karate.com, sign up, because as soon as you do that, you get all the news flashes and then you know exactly when the next show is going to be. Let me see, it's Karate Combat on at Karate Combat, I believe, on Twitter and on Instagram. Start following these people because I truly believe they deserve it. I thought they brought back karate almost like freaking in the beginning of Enter the Dragon, right? With the group of all standing there. I see all that coming, I have a feeling we have such a great director there now, and he's thinking so much out of the box. And I think we're going to see some really cool stuff from these guys. You'll watch. And we already saw it.
I would love to see like a reality show, like some kind of like weekly programming where we can get into the life of these guys, because I feel like it would almost be like the Karate Kid, but in real life. I also want to get an update on, of course, we've been looking at the body action system, and we've had people actually like every time you come on the show, people are always like, we want to train like Bas Rutten. We want to train with Bas Rutten. But unfortunately for all of our listeners, in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, it's a bit hard to do unless they go over to California. And here we see this body action system. You've been putting it up online and people have been talking about it, where you can sort of recreate a Bas Rutten workout, but in your own backyard using the system. You can also lose some weight and stuff. Like, it looks great right now for people that are trying to lose weight and do it in fun ways. Give us a little bit of an update on the system, though, man, because people sort of want to find out what the deal with it is, the ones that haven't really heard about it yet.
It is just a really great product. I just start punching and kicking again. I can't hit the back because of my neck surgery. All the metal I have in my neck, it comes, so much power comes back that I really injure myself every time I do it. So for years I haven't done it, and I started like 3-4 months ago. I start nailing it again, and I'm so happy that I started again. I started posting videos also with combinations. I show a certain combination, and then I tell them, okay, from this combination we can make like 5 combinations, and then I show how to do it, to change the angle of the punch, or to change the punch from a body shot to an uppercut. And once you start doing it on both sides, suddenly a simple combination, you can create a lot of combinations with it. So it opens the people's minds. And I think for people who are fighting, like, even if I would have had that, I don't think I would have had my tendonitis, because the tendonitis that I received that's from hitting a heavy bag just way too hard. And my muscles apparently were stronger than my tendons, because my tendons, I think the cortisones that I was taking as a kid, I took 45 pills a day for my asthma. Jeez. I remember 3 times 15. And at that time, they didn't know what the side effects of cortisones were going to be. And I truly believe that affected my tendons. And they became weaker compared to my muscles. And that's why, I started getting all these problems. You won't have that on the body action system. You hit a liver shot in the angle that it is shaped, you hit the perfect liver shot. You hit the solar plexus there. You can do uppercuts. You can't do that on anything else, right? Yeah, you have that other little bob thing that stands like this. That's like somebody waiting in line. You don't want to. Right? You don't want to wait a minute. A fighter stands 4 over a little bit. The jaw needs to stick out a little bit. You see what I mean? So that, together with the workout that I have, the audio workout, because that was the best, because I sold that workout already before I started with the body action system. They asked me, well, we need the workout. I said, I already have it. He said, what do you mean? I said, I have an audio workout. Watch. I threw it in, and I started doing it on the body action system. They go, oh my God, this is really good. So yeah, I love it. I made a whole bunch of new workouts for the people. Everybody's asking for years, hey, what are the new workouts? They're already out there for 2 years. 18 new workouts, but it's on bodyactionsystem.com. Go there, and they're downloadable. And those have crazy combinations. The old workout that everybody loves, I think there's like 20 combinations. If you put them all together, the new ones have over 100. They got elbows, limb shots, spleen shots. You name it, they have everything in there.
Shoulder strikes.
People, yeah. And it's perfect because you can elbow, uppercut. You can use it all on the body action system. That's what I love about that thing. And you don't get hurt. Best.
I love it because we see a lot of people, a lot of personal trainers trying to take advantage of people trying to get into shape. And then you see them and people are throwing these ridiculous punches and hurting their arms and legs. And here you have the system where you can just set it up in your backyard, quickly get your workout in and learn something in the process. It's absolutely fantastic. And of course, in the meantime, you can also jump on Amazon right now and get the Bas's entire MMA system workout, which is the DVD for under $50, which we just noticed as well. And that is pretty awesome too. So next time you see Submission Radio, Bas, know that we'll have a few new techniques thanks to you. Of course, follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Bas Rutten MMA. He's an absolute legend and icon, one of the friends of the program. It's an honor having you on Submission Radio 200, Bas. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, you guys, and again, congratulations, man. It's an awesome job. I really enjoy hearing stories. We started a podcast, and after a year and a half, it becomes so difficult, and I know you guys went through the hurdles as well, but you stuck with it, and you stuck with it the whole time, and look where you are right now. And I hear many times when I do an interview, people in my gym, everybody, they're listening to you. So I love it. Congratulations.
Thank you. And a shout out to all the people in your gym that may be listening, Bas. We always appreciate you, and thank you for being so kind to us over the years, man. Love it.
You're very welcome. You guys are awesome. That's why it's very easy to be kind to you.
Thanks, Bas. We'll let you go, man. Enjoy the rest of your day and get on with it. Thank you. Much respect, Bas.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys, our next guest needs very little introduction. One of the very best in the game. This man has been a helping hand to Submission Radio from the very beginning, putting us on his pre and post show for the now historic UFC 193 here in Melbourne, Australia. We couldn't do episode 200 without him. You can, of course, catch him on Ariel and the Bad Guy, the Ariel Helwani show. He is the Howard Cosell of MMA. He is in the building. Ariel Helwani, it's a great pleasure to welcome you back to Submission Radio episode 200, man.
Oh, thank you. And congratulations to you guys. 200, that's a really big deal. I kind of feel like it was more than 200, to be honest. I feel like you've been doing this for so long, but you guys have been grinding for a very long time and hustling and have amazing work ethic. So that's a great milestone, and congratulations. It's well-deserved.
Thank you very much, man. The we look up to you, so the words from you mean a lot to us here. I really appreciate it, and obviously appreciate you taking the time out of your crazy schedule to jump on. Before we get into it, obviously you're doing a great job in the NBA lately as well, interviewing Kawhi just the other day post-game. Can't imagine what a massive moment that would have been for yourself. And I know this is a bit of a funny note to start off the interview with, a little bit somber, but obviously the world is kind of reacting. So, obviously Kobe Bryant, passing away the other day. Just wanted to get your thoughts, sort of reaction to that, and also what the man meant to you personally on a personal note, just because you are such a big NBA fan.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. I still can't get over this. I mean, I know it's relatively fresh, a little over 24 hours, but I don't recall ever feeling this way about any sort of celebrity tragedy or death. Like I felt physical pain yesterday, and I think It's because, he was so young and seemed to be destined for such great things post-retirement. Seemed to be in such a, great place in his life, and, wins an Oscar right off the bat like that, and had great plans as far as media and his sports academy is concerned. But more so than all of that, just seemed to be so proud to be a father. Like all those photos and videos of him with his daughter at the games and bonding with her, and he has 3 other daughters as well, and it's just very hard to comprehend, where I'm sure it's helpless, and I can't stop thinking about his wife and, having to bury a husband and a daughter. I mean, like, it's unfathomable. And he, you start to think to yourself, like, why are you reacting this way? And it's because I think he felt very superhuman. These athletes, we put them on these pedestals, but like this guy, tore his Achilles in the middle of a game and walked to take free throws and hit both of them, and then walked off the court by himself with a torn Achilles. Like, that's just absurd. And he was just an amazing, fighter. He had a fighting spirit. And there's a famous photo of him like shooting free throws with his cast. He's one arm is in a cast, the other hand isn't. He's wearing like pajama pants. He's clearly injured. And it's just like this guy just wouldn't stop. And so it's just tough. And, when he came into the league in 1996, 97, I'm in high school and I love basketball, everything about basketball for me. And I told the story on my show on Monday where he was on the cover of a magazine called Slam Magazine, a basketball magazine. And he, in his second season, he started to grow out his hair. He had like a mini afro, and it was like the coolest afro. The guy was just so cool. He took Brandy to the prom and all this stuff. And I remember taking that magazine cover to my barber and asking him if he could cut my hair like that, because I started to grow out my hair because I was, I wanted to look like Kobe. And I was about to play in a big basketball tournament, and I just wanted to be as cool as that guy, 18 years old in the league doing the things that he did. And so we tried to cut my hair like him. I don't know if it actually turned out that way, but for kids my age in my high school, like the guy was just the man. Like, everyone loved him, and he was flawed and had a complex, story, and that's been talked about, what happened in Colorado in 2003. But man, this guy was larger than life, and to just see, this news, I still can't even wrap my head around. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. It's just like, it's a very hard thing to process.
No, absolutely understand it. I mean, I don't think I've seen an athlete like him who's had so much of an effect around the world. I mean, over here in Australia, it's just everybody's absolutely heartbroken as well. We saw Kyrgios was wearing the jersey. A lot of people representing him over the Australian Open right now in Melbourne, and it's just unbelievable. But we appreciate the words and your thoughts on it and the memories that you had of him. Just speaking of ESPN, obviously we haven't spoken to you since the big jump over. I'm just wondering, looking back on it now, how has it felt sort of doing the big switch between MMA fighting to ESPN? We know it's always been sort of a lifelong dream of yours to be on ESPN, to be on sports, and you've spoken about it on your show countless times, how much it meant to you as a child when you watched all the broadcasts and you watched the NBA games and you saw all the different things, and now you're a part of it. So just take us through what's it like, the big differences for you now with the big switch.
Yeah, when I came over to ESPN from MMA fighting in June of 2018, there were a lot of mixed emotions because, as you said, this was a dream of mine to work at ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, and all the possibilities that come with that. But on the other hand, I was sad to leave my friends and my colleagues who, I worked with for so many years, some of them 9 years, and, you create a great bond with these people. And it was just very hard. And my last day at MMA fighting was June 14th, and my first day at ESPN was June 15th. And I didn't give myself even like a minute to just kind of catch my breath. And I wonder in hindsight if that was the smartest thing. But, initially when you come to a new job, especially a job that's completely different than your other job, because working for ESPN and Disney, the parent company, is much different than Fox. Fox is kind of like a startup, and that's all I sort of knew. And Disney is very different, obviously. And so there's a lot of things that you have to get used to, and the vibe is different, and it's based in Connecticut, and, that's 2 hours from where I live and all this stuff. And it's just different. And so there was some getting used to. And, I would be lying if I didn't say, like, early on, it was a little hard at times. And you start to wonder, like, man, it was a lot easier. But you're comparing 9 years to 1 month, and that's not really fair as well. And usually it takes, like, 3 months to kind of get acclimated. But, so there's a little bit of that. There's some growing pains. There's some figuring out your spot. There's making new connections and trying to prove yourself all over again. There's all that. And there's pressure that comes with that, and there's anxiety that comes with that. But there's also like excitement and curiosity about what's to come and the possibilities. And so now here I am, I think around like 19 or so months later, and it's great. I mean, like you said, getting to work on NBA broadcasts, I've done 4 so far this season. That's just surreal. That's incredible for me. That's a dream. And I didn't think it would happen this soon. And getting to represent the company, some people sometimes will say to me online, like, you're such a shill for ESPN. You're damn right I am. I'm very, very proud to be a part of ESPN. I'm very proud to work for that company, and I'm proud to work for those people and to be a part of that team, especially considering how my time at Fox ended so poorly. To now get another chance to do things on TV when I thought maybe it would never happen again, and to get a chance to work for ESPN, the worldwide leader, the #1 sports network in the world, is an unbelievable opportunity. And meeting the people and the doors that open as a result of that has just been great. So now I feel like I'm in a groove, and I feel like I understand what it means to work there and how to kind of navigate the waters. And it's a lot different than a year and a half or so ago. So it's been really cool. And especially I didn't know when I signed with ESPN that the UFC would come over. I signed with them before that was ever even like being rumored. And to be there with their investment in MMA, with not just the UFC, but the PFL as well, and to see how much they care about MMA and the resources that they put into MMA is really cool. The people are really, really talented there. So yeah, I'm very, very happy. And, I hope that I can work there for many years.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I know it was pretty cool seeing you interviewing Ninja, because that was kind of the beginning of seeing like how you kind of, transcending sort of into other parts of other sports and other industries, while you're at ESPN. Now, obviously, you're doing NBA as well. And also for guys in MMA media, it's kind of cool to see like, what it's almost like you sort of raise the ceiling of what's possible and where to go sort of, MMA and obviously you and Brett and Mark all do a phenomenal job. I'm just wondering, like, when it comes to MMA and MMA reporting, you know the sport so well. Is there anything that surprises you at this point? Or are you at a point where you can kind of read where things are going to go and how they're going to play out, and you kind of expect it? Like, when was the last time that something truly shocked you?
Wow, that's a great question, and I appreciate the kind words very much. Man, last year was an interesting one for the sport, especially because it was the debut on ESPN, but it wasn't obviously a particularly good year for Conor McGregor, and I think that Conor is the face of the sport and the biggest star in the history of the sport, the biggest draw. And there were moments when you were wondering, like, man, is he going to be able to get back on track? Is he going to be able to right this ship? And so I don't know if I was necessarily quote unquote shocked, because as I've talked about with him and on my shows and stuff, like he was going down the path of, the stereotypical fighter who had everything and was starting to blow it. But just to see him like have that incredible rise and have that potential to crash like that was I don't know if shock is the right word, but was definitely a story that was like every moment you're like, man, okay, wow, what's going to happen now? I mean, the Brooklyn incident was just absolutely nuts. That was pretty damn shocking. That 48 hours was probably, the craziest in UFC history.
Yeah.
And so there's obviously been moments like, them moving the event for Jon Jones. Every time you think you've seen it all, something crazy happens, right, in this sport. And I would not put it past, the UFC and the sport of MMA that like more crazy things are going to happen. So I don't want to say that, nothing surprises me or nothing shocks me. And like, who would have thought Israel Adesanya would turn into what he has turned into, right? In a year and a half. That's incredible in its own right. And so it's great. I love it. I'm not tired of it. I'm not jaded. I don't want to leave MMA. I never want to stop covering MMA. It's nice to cover other things as well. But that's what I think keeps us coming back for more, is because this sport is so, it's like there's so many unexpected things. It's so unpredictable, I should say. And I think that's what really makes it a lot of fun.
And a lot of fun things happening here at the start of the decade in 2020. I want to jump to that, but before I do, just quickly, I mean, Casper mentioned that you, Chael, Brett, Mark, all do an amazing job over there at ESPN MMA, killing it, New York Rick and the whole team there. A little bit of criticism for Stephen A. Smith after his comments on UFC 246. Now, I'm a big Stephen A. Smith fan, and I love his commentary on basketball and all sorts of things. I saw Stephen was on social media. He sort of addressed it, responded to Joe Rogan, and then Conor McGregor jumped on. What do you make of some of this backlash for Stephen and some of the stuff that he's had to sort of deal with over the last few days and week?
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate, and I think that the MMA community is looking very small right now, in the sense that I'm reminded sometimes like we're like the fan base of a band that's been playing in dive bars for years, and all of a sudden they make it, and now they're playing at MSG, and we don't want to let anyone else enjoy this band because it was our own band. And by the way, this is not what martial arts should be about. This is not what MMA should be about. Like, we shouldn't be exclusive. We shouldn't be turning our backs on other people. We shouldn't be saying, you don't belong here, or you can't talk about this, or you can't cover this. I'll tell you this much. From my interactions with him, Stephen A. Smith is a big fan of MMA, and he's a big supporter of MMA within the company. And this is a guy who comes up to me and talks to me about, like, random fight nights, not just the Conor McGregor fights. Like, he is a fan. And he also recognizes that he's not an expert. I remember him coming up to me and talking to me about JDS, I think, when he fought Ngannou, and he's like, man, that Francis Ngannou, that guy's legit. And I was like, this guy really cares about the sport and really likes the sport, and he is not purporting to be any kind of like expert. He isn't breaking down things X's and O's. And I understand that he was critical of Donald Cerrone, but that's his job. Like, he's not asking to be there. He's not demanding to be there. ESPN wants him there because in many respects, he's the face of the network, and he bridges the gap from the casual sports fan to the hardcore MMA fan. He helps bridge that gap. He's a very important and influential person, and he's a very good person. Like, for me in particular, and this obviously should have nothing to do with what you think of his MMA commentary and how knowledgeable or not knowledgeable you think he may be. This guy always goes out of his way to say hello to me every time I see him, to give me a compliment, to comment on something that he saw that I did recently. And there's a lot of people who don't do that, who are on television there. And he is, in my opinion, the face of the network, and he just couldn't be a better teammate and a better colleague, and he doesn't have to do that sort of thing. And so it kind of bums me out to see him get this sort of heat. And I can understand why people are, defensive and protective of the sport and of the figures in the sport. But I don't think he was trying to be disrespectful. I think he was just being himself, and he was being critical, and that's okay. But I don't think we should have this mentality where, like, he has no business being there. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's what martial arts is all about. And so this is a guy who cares. He's not trying to diminish the sport. He's not trying to disrespect the sport. And guess what? This is a byproduct of the sport growing up and evolving and becoming more popular and becoming more mainstream. The more popular it gets, the more mainstream it gets, more people are going to want to talk about it. And we have to help educate them, and we have to help expose them to the greatness of the sport, and not try to deter other people, not try to have the lynch mob come after them when they say something that we disagree with. Because I can guarantee you, if anyone who is quote-unquote involved in the sport said the things that he said, no one would have batted an eye. Maybe it would have been a little bit like controversial or whatever, but not the kind of criticism that he's received. It's really silly. This is ESPN. He has every right to be on ESPN, and no one really else has a say in that. Like, you don't get to tell him that he can't be on ESPN. He helped make ESPN into what it is today. So it's unfortunate, and hopefully we can move past that. And I personally know for a fact that he's a fan of the sport and respects the sport. Anyone suggesting otherwise just doesn't know.
I appreciate it, man. We appreciate it. We appreciate you talking about it. We can tell the passion in your voice that, obviously that you have a lot of insight, on this whole side of things. But I'm just wondering, sort of one of the things Steven said was that we didn't learn a whole lot about Conor McGregor. Moving past all of that, what was your biggest sort of takeaway about Conor McGregor? What was the biggest thing you learned after his victory at UFC 246? Not so much from... I think it's more than the fight itself. I'm not talking about the elbows or anything like that. It just felt like Conor really needed to rebrand himself, or at least fix his image. And that whole week felt like, a campaign by him. Do you think that he was successful, on that mission? Do you feel like he's sort of, written all the wrongs of 2019? And I'm also curious what you think as far as what's next for him, because I know I did see that you were talking about potentially Nate Diaz making the most sense right now.
Yeah, so, everything that I just said about Stephen A. is 100% what I believe in. That being said, I can still disagree with his takes the same way tomorrow he'll be talking about something, basketball related. I'll be like, yeah, that's a great point. And the next day he'll say something else. I'll be like, nah, I disagree. That's the fun part about sports and covering sports. And so I disagree with his take on Conor McGregor. I think we learned a lot about him, but that's not to suggest. I just want to make clear that I don't think he deserves to say that or has any right to say that, or that I was offended by it. Absolutely not. That's just his opinion, and that's what makes, debating sports fun. So I think we learned a lot about him from the moment he arrived in Vegas, all the media that he did, the way he was in front of us. I mean, that he looked like a changed man. And, you use the word campaign. I understand what you're saying, but I don't feel like it was inauthentic. I don't feel like he was sitting back and crafting a sort of, image to try to win us over. I really do believe that this is who he is right now. Now, does he change in 8 months? Does he mess up? Does he lose, sight of his goals and his mission and get off track? Who knows? We don't know. We'll never know until it actually happens. But I believe that in that moment, he was very genuine. I feel like he was very authentic. I feel like he was very appreciative. He was very grateful. And you just saw that. Like, you saw a guy who was happy to be back. And that translated into a really great fighter. And when I had the opportunity to sit down with him and I stuck around a little bit, I saw him essentially meditating for what felt like 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, wow.
Just, not having the crazy energy and the, all over the place like he was before the Khabib fight. He just seemed to be in a great place. And that's why I used the word zen-like. He just seemed happy, content, free, not like, before the Khabib fight, I remember that interview that he did with Andrew McGann for the Mac Life. He was just kind of all over the place, and it didn't seem like he was in a great spot. He seemed completely different now, and so I think that was a phenomenal week for him. I don't think they could have dreamed of an even better week from arriving early at the press conference and just the whole the whole vibe to that press conference, and showing up at the media day and the vibe there, the weigh-ins, even being late for the weigh-ins, but then apologizing for being late. I mean, he just seemed like he was in a great place. And afterwards with Cerrone's grandmother and the way he celebrated and didn't go over the top, I just don't know if they could have crafted anything better than that. So I think it was phenomenal for him, and now I'm really curious to see where he goes from here. He appears to still be in a good spot from the stuff that I'm seeing online and my brief interactions with his people. So it's going to be really curious to see how quickly they can get him back in there. And against two, I sort of feel like there's three front runners right now. Obviously, Masvidal is the fight that everyone wants, but I don't feel like the UFC wants it right now. I feel like they want to do Masvidal versus Usman. And then there's the Nathan Diaz fight, which will always be there and will always be a big deal. And you can make a case that it will be there in a year, and you can make a case that it's a good time to do it now. And then the Justin Gaethje fight. And so if the Masvidal fight isn't there, I feel like it's down to those two. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Gaethje. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Diaz. I wouldn't be surprised if it's anyone else. But I kind of feel like it's now coming down to Gaethje or Diaz. I don't think there's any wrong answer there. I can see why you would want to do both. The Diaz fight felt like something that, as he's trying to prove to us that he's better than the old version, but that he's back at the same time, feels like, all right, who's the guy who called him out that he couldn't move up one weight? It was Cerrone. You got rid of him in this comeback. Who's the guy who beat you first in the UFC and then took you to the brink in the second one? It's Diaz. You can, cross that one off with the trilogy and then kind of move down the line. And so I think that those two are probably the front runner. The one thing I don't want to see happen is him fight Khabib or Ferguson, because that means we don't get Khabib and Ferguson, and I feel like that would be just an absolute shame. So I want to see that one play out in April. He gets a fight in between, and then we'll see what happens.
I'm curious because we hear McGregor mention March, and he wants to check the calendar and see what's happening in March. And we know Israel's on that card against Yoel Romero, and Israel is with Paradigm. Do you think that there is an idea floating around of McGregor possibly jumping on that card? And maybe sort of in a way, even though Israel is obviously a huge star in his own right, but almost giving him a bit of a rub of being on the same card as him and a bit of extra viewership, a bit of extra, a few extra views, and to be a part of that McGregor experience with him now that he's a part of Paradigm and sort of part of McGregor's agency.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea, and I can totally understand where you're coming from, but I feel confident in saying, like, if the card remains the way it's constructed now, there's no chance of that happening. I think there was a chance of that happening if they couldn't get a deal done with Izzy, but they did. And now that you have two championship fights on that card, and it's pretty much set, the thing is, like, Conor McGregor costs a lot of money, and he also generates a lot of money, and he generates a lot of pay-per-views. And if you put Conor on a card with other champions who probably get pay-per-view points, that means you're going to have to pay them a lot more money, right? You're going to have to divide that pie a little more. And so I think there's a good chance that Conor, the next time he fights and the next time he fights after that is on a card without any other champions. Unless that champion doesn't get pay-per-view points, there's some of those as well. But just because, like, you see the kind of cards that he's on, some might say they're a little thin or they don't have a lot of big names. He just costs a lot of money, and rightfully so. And so you have to be a little strategic with the economics of it all. And so I don't think there's any chance with two champions fighting on that card. And then it gets interesting. Like April, he's not going to fight on the same card as Khabib for the reason I just mentioned, the economics, but also, like, that's a security nightmare. And then we get to May, and that card's in Brazil. And then we get to June, and, hearing rumblings that might be in Australia. And so then we get to July, and they said that they're going to fight before July. And so where are you going to put him? Perhaps they make a new pay-per-view for him like they just did for this one. That would make sense. Do they want to do that? So I'm really curious to see where he ends up, because I think that's going to be a fascinating story to follow. Just because the way the schedule is now, there's no obvious spot.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time, Ariel. We'll let you go in a moment because I know you're driving. There's kind of two wild scenarios here, right? Every sort of few weeks we're hearing about, GSP and Khabib. That kind of keeps being brought up, as far as that might be GSP's return fight if somehow the stars align and GSP, does return to MMA. And then, of course, Conor McGregor has spoken about Floyd Mayweather or Manny Macquiao and spoken about boxing. There's obviously a lot of options, but if you had to sort of guess what is more likely, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fighting again at some point this year for whatever reason, or GSP returning in some capacity, potentially against Khabib, which of those do you think is more likely in 2020?
Oh my, that's a tough one. I would say right now, more likely Conor versus Floyd, if only because I feel like the UFC has felt burned by GSP over the last two fights of his. The first one, of course, the Johnny Hendricks fight at UFC 157, where he ended up vacating the title, and then the second one after the after the Michael Bisping fight, where they wanted him to fight Robert Whittaker, and then he ended up, obviously vacating that title as well. And I think that they don't feel like it makes any sense to put him in there against Khabib, because what if he beats Khabib and then he's going to walk away again, and now you just had Khabib lose, and you don't get to capitalize on the guy who just beat him, and that's the name of the game. You don't want to put him in there and have him walk away with another belt, vacate that title, or just with the lone Khabib loss on the Khabib's record, and now you can't capitalize. So I don't feel like that's going to be a thing. And because of the flirtation with Floyd, and because Conor's active and things like that, I feel like the smart bet would be to say the Floyd fight. That being said, I don't want to necessarily advocate for it. I mean, if Conor, God bless him, make as much money as you can. This is the fight game. I'm not going to begrudge him for doing that. But I'm just saying, as a fan myself, I want to see the best compete at what they're best at. And I think he's at his best in mixed martial arts. And I think his most intriguing fights are in mixed martial arts. And we saw the Floyd fight, and it was fun. It was probably the most fun, experience to cover that fight week. It was just amazing, feeling like the eyes of the sporting world were on that particular fight. But I want to see him fight Justin Gaethje. I want to see him fight Masvidal. I want to see him fight Nate Diaz. I want to see him eventually try to get that lightweight title back, and who knows what else comes up. I don't want to see him box. We saw it. It was cool. It was great. He hung in there. But, I want to see him at his best. And I feel like he's at his best in MMA.
Yeah, very well said, Ariel. Just one more person in Brock Lesnar. You had that great interview with Daniel Cormier on your program this week that I encourage everybody to check out. You guys sharing some great memories and talking about his future. But I know the DC saying the Stipe fight will be his last. Do you think there's any chance the UFC is able to get this Brock Lesnar deal done as a sort of farewell present to DC as he wraps up his career after Stipe, if he does win?
If the King of Bros doesn't retire him, that is.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great one. I've heard nothing about Brock, and I've not heard him on DC's radar or anyone else's radar. So I don't believe that's a thing right now. It would be, I suppose, a nice consolation prize, no doubt about that. But I really do think that he wants to end his career as champion, and he was very close to doing that in August. And who knows, if he would have defeated Stipe in Anaheim, do they try to convince him to take that Jones fight? I think there's a very good chance that they at least try to convince him. Does he take the fight? Who knows? I think he was kind of going back and forth on that. But he was so close to retiring on top, and that's such a hard thing to do. And I think he just really wants to get that one back. I think if you offered him Stipe or Jones right now, I think he would actually take the Stipe fight, because I think he wants to end it all with that heavyweight title. And I think he feels a little frustrated that this thing is dragging on. Now, I feel for Stipe as well, because I do believe that he, did have surgery, and eye surgery is a really big deal. It's a very serious thing. It's nothing to try to diminish or scoff at. But I understand why DC is frustrated as well, because I think he thinks that, they're trying to turn the tables on him and make him wait, even though he wasn't really making Stipe wait. It was the UFC's idea to try to go after the Brock fight. It wasn't his idea. They orchestrated that whole thing. And so I think he's frustrated and just kind of wants to get that fight done and try to win that belt and move on with his life. And so it's a tough spot. And then now you have these other heavyweights that are kind of breathing down, the neck of Stipe, like Francis and Jairzinho and obviously Curtis Blades with the big win. So it's just a tough spot, but I think he really wants to end it all with that championship belt. And so I think to him, that's most important right now. And hopefully he can get that by the summertime. And by the way, of all the options out there, I think that's the biggest one, at least for Stipe. The fight, I know his manager was mentioning other names, but there's no bigger fight than that trilogy fight. The first two fights were great. DC's a big deal. If I were them, I would be trying to go for that fight. That's the biggest fight. That's the fight that makes you the most amount of money.
Yeah, 100%. Aaron, I know we've gone for a while. I promise I have one last question, then we'll be gone.
Don't worry, I'm driving. You're you're giving me some company. It's a little lonely here.
Oh, good. All right. Well, that's nice. I'll sort of sandwich these questions sort of two together. I couldn't live with myself if I wouldn't ask them. We started at the top of the interview talking about how you've reached sort of the pinnacle of the sport as far as media and journalism. It doesn't get any bigger than ESPN. So as someone who, I know you always talked about how you want to be the Howard Cosell in MMA. I'm just wondering, with all your experience, if you have any sort of advice or sort of tips for anybody who might be watching you on a regular basis and saying, hey, I want to be the next Ariel Helwani, whether it's of MMA or some other kind of industry. And also, I've always wanted to ask you, as a guy who's sort of been a part of and done some of, if not the biggest interviews in this sport, what for you makes a good interview? What is the key? What is, I guess, the secret ingredient or a combination of ingredients that for you sort of is essential to a good interview?
Okay, so I'll answer the first one. I don't think that I'm anywhere near, like I'm light years away from even being in the vicinity of Howard Cosell. Like I don't even, like these are all dreams, and I think it's important to have dreams and it's important to strive for things, but I'm nowhere near that, and I want to try. I don't think I'm anywhere near the pinnacle or that much better than anyone. I want to be the best. I want to be my best. I want to try to fulfill my potential. I don't think that I'm there yet. I'm very critical of myself. I still don't feel like I've ever had like a great show like today, doing this show on a Monday. I don't feel like it was a good show. Like I get mad at myself all the time. It's just I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I've never ended a show feeling good about myself or happy or content. I can tell you 5 things right now that I hated about today's show. It's just that's just the way I guess my brain works. So
we're like that as well. Could you tell us 5 if you feel comfortable? Not to put you on the spot. I'm just curious. Like, maybe, what is it that you pick
maybe
apart?
or even just one,
an
example of something. Yeah, even just one of an example of something that stands out to you. I'm sure, like we will, obviously every interview we'll listen with you, we go, this is a great interview. But I'm just wondering when you think about it, what stands out to you?
Like for today in particular?
Yeah.
Or just in general?
In general.
Well, like for example, I'll give you a perfect example. So I did a basketball game Christmas Day, and that's a huge deal to be on the Christmas Day broadcast. And it was a pretty good game. But I was so mad. I was so mad at myself. I felt like I choked. I felt like I had one of the worst days of my career because the walk-off interview, which is basically like the end interview, like the one that I did with Kawhi on Friday, which is essentially like you talk to like the star of the winning team. I felt like I dropped the ball. One of my pet peeves as an interviewer is I don't like when you set up a question with talk about. I don't like that type of question. And I said it, and I don't know why I said it, and I've never said it before. And I was so mad at myself for saying that. And I went back to my hotel room and I yelled. I was like yelling at myself at the top of my lungs because I was like, how could you say that? You get like 3-4 questions in that moment. You don't say that because I feel like I'm not established in that world. I feel like I'm auditioning. I don't know if they're going to ask me to come back. I don't know if they're going to ask me to do another game. I don't know any of this. And you're saying that. You're saying your biggest pet peeve. Why the hell did you say that? I was so mad at myself. And so I'm sure someone watching at home was like, yeah, or whatever, like, when's the next game? Like, they couldn't care less, right? But for me, I just want to try to be as good as possible, and I care so deeply about this job and trying to be the best that I can be that maybe sometimes I put too much pressure on myself. Maybe sometimes I overthink things. I don't know. Maybe I'm too critical. I don't know. But, like, those are the kinds of things that, like, feel like devastation to me, but to anyone else, I would imagine it's just like, what are you talking about? It was fine. Like, get over it. That type of thing. But, one might say, hey, one might say that's what, helps to try to make you the best that you can be. And so to answer the question about, any kind of advice, I've always believed that it's important to be different. I've always believed that, like, you should look around the landscape. Like, if you want to be a journalist, right, and it doesn't matter what sport you want to cover or what beat you want to cover, look around what everyone else is doing, because there's probably other people covering that beat, covering that sport right now. And it's okay to take a little here, take a little there, but ultimately try to be different, because it's going to be very hard to stick out if you're not different, if you're like everyone else. So try to create your own voice, try to create your own style, try to stick out, and perhaps good things will happen. Very important is to be professional. Very important is to be respectful. Very important is to respect the people that came before you, and to respect the people that you're covering, to respect all the sources, to have their trust. If someone tells you something is off the record, it has to always remain off the record. If someone tells you something in confidence, it has to remain that way. It has to remain, that kind of quote unquote secret between you two. That's very, very important. If you don't have trust, then in this business, I think that you have nothing. And you have to have a great work ethic. There's no shortcuts. People ask me, how do I get to ESPN? I want to work for ESPN. Like, it took me 17, 18 years to get to ESPN, as far as a professional is concerned. It takes a long time. And I still don't feel like I've quote unquote made it. I still feel like I have a lot of work to do. And so, you just have to work as hard as possible and grind as hard as possible. Look around you, learn from other people, open your eyes, open your ears, read, listen, consume as much as possible, immerse yourself in the sport. There's a lot that goes into it. But if you're not pleasant, if you're not respectful, if you're not trustworthy, if you're not someone that people want to be around, you're not going to go very far. Be humble and work hard and all those things. These are things that I've tried to be as much as possible and be as professional as possible. And hopefully try to develop relationships with as many people as possible. So that's what comes to mind when someone asks me for advice. As far as the other question about, the perfect interview per se, now at this point, I'm lucky because a lot of the people that, I interview that come on the show and whatnot, I have relationships with. I've been interviewing them for a while. I've been talking to them for a while. And so there's a rapport that comes with that. And that makes, I think, for a good conversation. When I interview someone, when it's on the show or in any other capacity, I never show up with, a list of questions. That's another pet peeve of mine, because I feel like if I was going to a dinner party tonight and you were there, I'm not coming with a list of questions. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're going to have a conversation. It's going to be a free-flowing conversation, and you're going to listen to me, and I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to ask you a question and then ask you a follow-up, and you're going to do the same. And I think that if you show up to an interview with a sheet of questions, you're not listening. You're not prepared for follow-ups. You're not ready to ask something based on something that the person said that you weren't prepared for. And I think that makes for a very bad interview. So I just try to be prepared, know the subject, do the research, whatever it means. And obviously in MMA, I don't have to do a lot of research because I live and breathe this, but just be prepared and be up to speed on what is going on in that person's life, and listen and ask follow-ups, and open your ears to what they're saying, and not just be looking at a sheet of paper and going from this question to that question to this question. And then hopefully as the interview goes on, you develop a rapport, even if it's with something you don't know. You develop a bond, you develop a relationship, and you try to get them to let their guard down and to remember, or to try to pretend like it's not an interview and there aren't cameras staring at them. And that's when you'll get the best stuff, because then it just becomes a conversation, and then it just becomes free flowing. And that's when hopefully you get the real honest stuff, like when someone really opens up to you. And that's the best feeling, when you feel like, all right, this person trusts me enough to open up, to be honest with me, to let their guard down, to share things with me. That's the greatest compliment that you can possibly get, I think, as an interviewer, as a journalist. So those are some things. And in the moment, you kind of know when it's happening, and it's a very good feeling when it happens.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ariel, a lot of wisdom dropped in this interview. We appreciate you so much. Guys, make sure to catch Ariel and the Bad Guy, the Ariel Helwani Show, and, of course, the great coverage via ESPN MMA on YouTube and wherever it's available. Ariel, we appreciate you coming on and helping us celebrate Submission Radio 200 and all the support over the years and everything that you've done for the MMA media community. You're an absolute legend, and we're really, really honored to have you on this program. Thank you so much, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm sorry that I can't be on via Skype or video. I'm driving home from Connecticut, which takes a while, and this is just a good time to talk, and you've helped me kind of pass the time. So selfishly, I appreciate that as well. So thank you to you guys, and congratulations on the milestone. Keep up the great work and keep up the work ethic. I see you guys working very hard you capitalize every second that you're at these events, trying to get different angles, different things. And you guys are exactly what I was talking about, being different voices, covering the sport your own way, giving people, a reason to tune into your stuff. That's crucial. So keep up all the great work. And I just want to say also that, for whatever it's worth, I know it's not worth a lot. My heart goes out to everyone in Australia. I love Australian people. My visits to Australia have reminded me of home, of Canada, and it's devastating to see what is going on over there and what you have had to deal with. And so I'm praying for you guys, and I'm happy that your families weren't directly affected, but I know everyone's been affected over there, and it's just horrible to see what's happened to the animals and the forests and everything, the agriculture. So I'm sorry that everyone's going through that, and I hope it ends very soon.
Well, for those who don't know, when we came to Vegas, that was the first thing you asked us, actually, when we sort of said hi to each other. So I know it's something that you definitely do care about. And also, as far as the nice things you said, we really appreciate it, man. Those words mean more than you'll probably ever know. So really appreciate you jumping on the show, and thanks again, man. Glad we could help you pass the time, Ariel.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest had an insane 2019, beating Anderson Silva, Kelvin Gastelum, and capping it off with a milestone knockout over Robert Whittaker to become the UFC middleweight champion here in our own backyard. He is now set to take on Yoel Romero at UFC 248 in March. More importantly, the man personally responsible for making cunt great again. Real G's move in silence like lasagna. It is Israel Adesanya. Welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you, man?
With the bars. I like it. You guys get great.
We're watching EMG Access, man. Seeing you getting kills on Call of Duty, dropping Little Wayne references.
Yeah. You know the vibes. But yeah, thanks for having me, man. Thank you for, like I said, at the press conference, I said, thanks for putting us on, even though we're Kiwis and, it's still Oceania against the world. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you, man, and obviously a lot to talk about. First off, though, we know you're not the biggest fan of a lot of other sports like basketball, but I saw on Instagram stories you had some really nice and sort of fun sort of memes about Kobe, how when you shoot, you go Kobe, and all the great sort of memories that came for us growing up with an athlete like him. I mean, for a lot of us, the man sort of just personified greatness and hard work ethic and stuff like that. I just want to get your thoughts, really sad passing him not around anymore. What was your reaction and sort of to the tragic news of him not being around?
Well, I woke up and this guy was like, "Oh, did you hear the news?" I was like, "What news?" He said Kobe passed, and I was just like, "No way!" Like I was fully in shock, and yeah, I just couldn't believe it. It's not like anyone is immune to Father Time, but yeah, it's just so soon, so sudden, like, and just the way he died. He said it was a helicopter crash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was tragic. And then I heard, because first one I thought of was JC, one of our management teams who's worked really close with him, and Twist, who's one of my striking coaches, who is the biggest Kobe fan, like Stan. And I hit them up, and just they were the first people I had in mind, because I can imagine what it's like, if one of your idols or close friend dies. But for me personally, like you said, I don't watch sports. I don't follow basketball. I follow greatness. And he's a guy that transcended the sport. He transcended basketball. He was a guy that, when I was living in China, when people were trying to, oh, Kobe Bryant. I was like, oh, no, I don't play basketball. Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, so Kobe was bigger than sport. He was bigger than life, but yeah. It is what it is, and yeah, he'll rest in love. And to everyone else that passed away in that tragic accident, it was weird. The last 2 days, I've just been feeling. It kind of gets you reflecting on your own mortality and your own legacy that you want to lead, that you want to leave behind. So he's left a legacy that is second to none. He's a guy that he'll live on forever.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, everyone has like sort of these big long-term goals. Everyone's saving money, this and that, and you kind of hope that Kobe's last few days were at least fun days, and he kind of enjoyed himself, because you never know. You never know when when it's all going to end.
He just retired, didn't he? Like last year or 2 years ago, he just retired. So
yeah, a few years ago, he won an Oscar. He
Yeah.
opened up his own academy. He was destined for a lot of great things.
That's the thing as well. Like, he's got 4 girls. You know, he just had I think another one on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So he, you know, when you retire, and especially the way he worked, his Mamba mentality. When you retire, you hope to have more free time to be able to just enjoy the fruits of your labor and enjoy it with your family, your loved ones, your close ones. And to be taken away so suddenly, it's just, yeah, it's sad, you know, but it's one of those things you have to reflect on, and yeah, it's giving me a lot to think about, 100%.
Well, I encourage everyone to check out EMG Access and check out that video of you and Twister working out in the gym with your friend over there who's driving right now, where you speak a lot more about Kobe, and you obviously got the poster of Kobe on the wall as well. But I wanted to ask you, man, I was thinking about it, like this time around last year, we were sitting in the hotel room with you ahead of your Anderson Silva fight. You were very kind enough to give us some time, and how much things have changed now. And I'm just wondering, sort of, you know, is it true that ahead of the Robert Whittaker fight, you were sort of walking around the streets of Melbourne just trying to sort of soak up what might be your last chance at sort of anonymity before, you know, essentially becoming a big star? Is that true?
Yeah, this is actually, you know, keep it on straight. What do you call it? The press conference, the one where Megaphone came through.
Yep.
That night, I went to an alleyway by the hotel, lit up a joint, and then I just had my AirPods in and just walked around Melbourne. And I ended up at a tram stop and just sat there for like 40 minutes to an hour, just jamming to music and just feeling irie and just enjoying just my last few moments in a major city that I'll be able to walk around and just be free. So I understand. I've seen what happens in this game or in entertainment to a lot of people in my position, and they wish they could have their freedom back. They could just go to the mall and not. I don't even fucking go to the grocery stores anymore. Like, that was my favorite pastime. One of my favorite pastimes, just headphones in, podcasting, you know, shopping. And now a trip that should take 20 minutes could take an hour, because every aisle, everyone wants to take a photo and then wants to have a conversation. And, you know,
wow,
my time is precious. I don't really want to waste it, especially when I just finished training and I'm tired and my legs are hurting. The last thing I want to do is, you know, make small talk or repeat myself about my next fight. You know, well, everyone just thinks it's just one photo. It's just their own. But yeah, you know, I understand what it is, so I'm acting accordingly, and I'm a dick when I have to be, because a lot of people have no manners. A lot of people have no manners and respect when they see someone quote unquote famous. So if they come at me wrong, I give them the wrong energy as well.
We've heard like epic stories of Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio trying to wear wigs, hats, fake noses, body doubles. What are the strategies you're putting in place right now so you can still enjoy your grocery time? Is there a wig that you?
No wig. I just walk around bare feet, because for whatever reason, when I walk around bare feet, people just can't be him. He's not even got shoes on. That's just another bum. So I just walk around bare feet because of my own reasons. I fight bare feet. I like to stay connected to the earth. But yeah, a lot of people, that's my tactic, just bare feet. And I have this energy I can give up where I'm just like, don't talk to me sometimes. Well, I'm a nice guy. I'm not a dick. You know, I love people, and I love it when people are nice to me, so I can be nice back to them. And even when they're not nice to me, I'm still nice back to them sometimes. But at the same time, you have to remember, we're humans. We're all humans, and we all have good days and bad days. And if I'm having a shit day, you come at me with a level 100 energy, I might not give you the song and dance you're requesting, you know?
And we know the Kiwis are pretty respectful compared to some of the other countries as well. But I was going to say,
that's what
you mentioned.
Like to think. That's what you like to think. Everyone likes to say that. But no matter, yeah, it's different. Example, compared to, say, Vegas. Like, fight week in Vegas or anytime in Vegas is different, or LA. It's a little bit different. LA is more. Last time I felt like I was actually, well, not last time, but like I felt kind of like normal in public was when I went to a party in Beverly Hills, and I was in and amongst all these fucking Hollywood bigwigs and, you know, musicians and actresses and actors and shit. And yeah, I just felt like people showed love, but they didn't, like, you know, they just let you be you. So yeah, it was cool. That was nice, and I could see why people fall into the Hollywood trap because they want to stay in that. Oh,
Oh no! What happened?
We thought someone nicked the car, but it's all right. Oh, fucking Dan! Why would you do that?
Dan,
why would you do
all
that?
people?
What's your problem? I'll scrap G.
At least it's not the McLaren, right? I feel like Isuzu's trying to take out the McLaren. Isuzu's like, we don't like this.
I know where he lives.
I was gonna say, Israel, we've heard celebrities sort of talk about what you're talking about and how it can feel a little bit claustrophobic, not enjoying the things that they usually enjoy. I'm just wondering, do you feel like that sometimes? Like, how do you not?
Repeat that again.
Well, a lot of people that are so well known like you, they feel claustrophobic sometimes. Like they can't go out and do the things that they enjoy. Like, how do you deal with that? Does that bother you sometimes, and you just want to go down to the grocery store and you can't?
Yes, but you have to accept life as what it is. You can't live in the past. But there's what did Michael Jackson do? He hired a whole store and hired actors and actresses and then made them pretend to be shoppers and workers so you can enjoy that luxury.
Oh wow.
But for me, I'm not going to do that. Like I said, I'll face it head on and I'll still I just feel sometimes I feel just when people are like in your bubble, they like to like let you know they're really, really big fans and they get all up in your space. And yeah, I have my own ways, and sometimes I have to kind of like just put my foot down and just be like, look, fuck off.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing that none of us are really ever going to truly, be able to understand. But it's fascinating hearing, sort of your stories. You mentioned head on. Speaking of head on, Dana White told us at UFC 246 that you personally asked for this fight against Yoel Romero, and that he wasn't necessarily keen on it, but you obviously were. So I guess I'm wondering why this fight, why Romero specifically?
Well, I mean, it was hard to sell it to them because they're like, we can't give a title shot to a guy who's had numerous title shots, who's, been known for little vet moves or cheating, aka. And he's just a guy that they didn't think they could sell it, but I told them I'd sell it. Like, I'd be the one to put it on because he's the guy that people have been hoping. It's not really about him. They're not coming to watch him. They're coming to watch me because they're hoping he's the one to take me out. Because from the get-go, from my first UFC fight, all they ever said was feed him to Romero. He'll take him down and it's over. That's what all the casuals have felt. That's what all the experts have felt. So, yeah, I just feel like he's one of those guys that he scares Darren Till. I don't see it. But yeah, he's the guy that scares a lot of people, and no one asks to fight him, so I'm doing something different.
So I guess it's fascinating, right? You mentioned sort of they want to see you lose, or they want to see you face Romero. Like, who specifically is they, and do you feel like people want you to lose? It's like almost a pro wrestling thing, right? Where you build people up, and then when they make it, people sort of want to tear them down. Why do you think that is?
That's just human nature. You build them up, and then when they feel like, oh, he thinks he's the man, he's too big for this. Well, let's hope he loses. He's winning too much. It's just sometimes, and I know this because I felt it before. I felt it. I just like you see someone on top for so long, you're like, fuck. If he loses, it'll be so epic. Let's just see. Like, it's honestly, everyone feels it. You guys feel it. Everyone feels it. But you have to recognize that. When you recognize that, you're able to navigate through it and realize, oh, it's actually nothing against me. It's just, people doing their own thing. But I don't know. Whoever they is, they know who they are. And they can pick a number and wait in line.
They're watching right now going, hey, he's on to us. But I was going to say that with choosing a guy like Romero... With choosing a guy like Romero, is there any added pressure? Like, I mean, a lot of champions, by the way, especially in the modern day of the UFC, they kind of try and avoid the tougher matchups. Here you are going for the tougher matchup, but is there more pressure to win this one considering you sort of let Yoel have this shot, or is it sort of same business, same day for you?
Same business, different night. It's just another guy. I mean, there's no added pressure if it was... even if it was Brunson again, it would just be, oh yeah, another fight. Cool, let's get it done. I don't know. People look at things differently compared to me. Yeah, that's why I'm in the position I'm in. Yeah, I don't feel any added pressure. It's just March 7th, me and another man who bleeds, who cries, who sweats. You know, just gonna step in there and do battle, and I'll come out on top.
But you do see that there is something different about you, right, Israel? Like, is it confidence in your skills? Is it sort of living life on the edge and taking risks? Is it about proving something to yourself? Like, this is sort of an ode to back in the day when it's like anytime, anywhere, and that's something that you're kind of exemplifying here.
I've said it because a lot of people already, oh, let's go to 205, let's face the champ. For me, I'm like, just give me a second. I'm only 2 years in the game. That's one thing a lot of people are forgetting. I've only been here 2 years. I could have been in the UFC a long time ago, but we took our time so we can properly prepare and not be another rise and fall superstar or whatever. So I'm doing my bit by, I've already defended my belt once. I won it in Atlanta. I defended it in Melbourne. I want to defend it like 3 more times this year. And if I can get one more next year, early next year, that'll be cool. And then I'll step up and fight whoever I want to fight in 205. But yeah, I'm just, like you said, it's a throw to the old. It's a homage. What do you call it? Thing, paying homage to the old school, doing right by a division, winning the belt, defending the belt, and then stepping up. Not just like, oh, win the belt, step up, and then hold up the division. The division was already held up a long time because of Robert. So I don't want to be that guy.
Obviously, everybody loves an active champion, and this is kind of the stuff that builds your legacy. And I hear you talking about legacy. I feel like this is kind of a legacy fight, not only in fighting Romero, but just choosing Romero in general. What do you think this one kind of does for the legacy? I know we've sort of joked around about the Israel Adesanya motion picture one day when it comes out. What do you think this fight does for your legacy?
This fight for my legacy is just, let me think. I don't know if it does anything specific for my legacy. Like a fight like Anderson Silva, that was a crucial fight for my legacy because it was a quote unquote passing of the torch moment because of the old school and the new school and rah. And my history with Anderson as the guy I looked up to to get into this game. But this fight with Romero, I don't really think it does anything specifically for my legacy, apart from being another body on the line. Another tough guy on the line that we have to take out.
When we were talking to Dana White, he mentioned how he was trying to fight you and stop you from taking this fight. I'm just wondering, what were the options on the table for you? Because we know Paulo Costa was never going to be ready for this fight. You'd think it'd be impossible. So what were the names that he was throwing at you that instead?
There weren't really any names originally, but I think I was looking at 244, see how Darren Till or Kelvin does, see how they won. If one of them, if Darren had won in spectacular fashion, knocked out Kelvin in the first round, something crazy like that, fuck it, I'm going to London. About the stadium over there, that would have been the one. But yeah, you just in this game you have to play things by ear sometimes and just see how things go with the ebbs and flows. But yeah, that was just one of the options. Cannonier, he was another guy that was on the table, but it just felt like, personally, I felt like I want to savor that one. So I don't want to rush that fight. That fight can be a really, really monumental fight for MMA and MMA history. For the culture. So for me, I didn't want to rush that fight. I felt like he just needed one more big win.
Who, Darren? Darren or Cannonier?
Cannonier.
Okay.
Jared. Yeah, two black men going at it at the height of their careers. Like if he has one more big win, like again, if he fights Darren in 248, in my undercard, if he has like a highlight win, that could be the next one. But we'll see.
You mentioned Darren's fight with Kelvin Gastelum. A lot of people picking Kelvin to win that one, and really sort of shocked when they saw that Darren Till was able to win it. Kelvin Gastelum, one of the toughest guys in the division. But what was your sort of thought of him, at middleweight? I know that you were looking if he was going to get a quick win, but were you impressed with his performance at all? What did you think about his fight against Kelvin at middleweight?
I liked it. I didn't think everyone, boring, we're boo, whatever. But that's just, casuals as they do. I liked that. I thought he fought smart. It wasn't, like a fight like I had with Kelvin, or like I had with Whitaker, or the one I had with Anderson, you know. But it was a tactical fight. It was a safe fight. And for him coming off the losses he had, I think he had to play it that way. He just played it the smart way. And now he's got that win under his belt. He's got the wind under his sails. We'll see what he does at 248. If he make, am I breaking news? I don't know. Maybe I'm just putting it out there. He might fight Cannonier because, you know, Robert pulled out to donate bone marrow to his daughter, which is really admirable. So
those are rumors, and I don't think those are true. But go on.
They're not.
Bit of fake news. Yeah.
Fake news. Oh, yeah. How dare
well,
they?
Unconfirmed news. I'm confirmed. I don't want to take something away from Robbie Fears, but
he's definitely going through something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he had to pull out from a fight like that, you know, on a card like mine, then yeah, it must be something really, really serious. So I hope whatever it is, it's all good. You know, but yeah.
Just quickly on Darren, you guys have kind of a funny relationship, right? Like you'd fight him, but you guys are kind of like friends, kind of allies. It's almost a Goku Vegeta kind of thing, right?
A little bit, but we're cool. I like Darren. We already know we're gonna fight one day. We'll do it for the culture of fighting, because that's a stylistic matchup that just can't be missed. Not in this era. That's a fight that's not gonna get away from under me. But yeah, I like him. He's a good sort. He's a good kid. Yeah, I think we'd get along very well. But you know, Darren is not 8.
Well, I was gonna say that would be an exciting fight for you guys if he fights Cannonier, and then it'd be you against him. So are you still open to going over and doing a stadium show over his way if he does go through a guy like Cannonier as sort of one of the moments in your legacy as a champion?
I haven't been in London yet, so what better excuse? I got the best English striker in the world right here. Anyway, look at him.
A wild Dan Hooker appears. Look at that.
But that's Mark Tim. That's Mark Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry. The resolution was so small. I took a stab in the dark.
Racist.
All black was
yeah. So I mean, what better reason to go to London than to go set up a stadium show over there and fight, you know, one of their sons, and Darren Till.
And by the way, Darren Till, you know, he's joked around and he's afraid of Yoel Romero, and here you are defending your title against him. Those EMG Access videos, by the way, if people haven't checked them out, are absolutely fantastic. We loved learning about the spider training and all sorts of things that are happening in the camp. But you said in one of the videos that you spoke about doing charitable things. Do you think Yoel is lucky to be getting this title shot against you?
Bet. Fuck. I mean, look, when he fought, his last win was my UFC debut. Think about it, let that sink in. I said, I've been here for a long time. I've only been here for 2 years. His last win was my UFC debut. He's a guy that, even that fight, it was for the interim title, right? He didn't make weight. He could have spent the extra hours or whatever time was given to make the weight. He chose not to because he decided, or his team decided, they'll take the fine, and if they win, they'll still get the shot at the title anyway. These are tactics. These are moves that they do. So yeah, he's a guy. I mean, he's lost his last 3 out of 4. He's had 2-3 different title shots. Fuck. I mean, come on. I'm a nice guy, you know. This can be a tax write-off.
How does that sort of weigh in your mind, like knowing Romero's obviously controversial history? I was watching a highlight reel the other day of him, and like so many things happen in so many fights. How do you sort of, you know?
What is it? Stoolgate.
Yep.
Missing weight. Fans grabs, shorts, love grabbing. The list goes on, and they call these veteran moves. But trust me, some people will do anything to win, whether right or wrong. They'll do anything just to get that win. You know, but I'm not one of those people. I'll do anything within my power, within the rules to win. I don't bend the rules. Even on the style bender, I don't bend the rules in the way you think, like trying to get an advantage with steroids or, you know, I'm not that kind of guy. Even when the only time I've ever been warned was when I was fighting Brad Tavares and Herb Dean said, "Hey, you gotta close your hands." And I was like, "Okay, not like this, like this." He's like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay, cool." And find another fight where I've been warned, you know. Find another fight where I've been warned. Like, nah. I play by the rules because, you know, I want an even playing field. but these boys don't want to play fair. So sometimes, you have to do what you have to do. But can you sleep with yourself at night? Can you win a world title cheating and then be okay with that? If you can, power to you. But that's not how I want to do it.
I know everyone's saying like he's your toughest test. He's your toughest test. Do you think he's your toughest test? I almost get the sense that you're sort of leaning towards Cannonier in this one.
I've had some tough tests. Right now, I still think Kelvin has been my toughest fight so far. Physically, mentally, Anderson was my toughest fight so far. But we'll see. That's yet to be said. I don't think he's gonna be like the way the match is shaping up. I don't really think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be quite not easy, but I'll make it look easy.
What?
I said that about the Robert fight because everyone was counting me out. They were like, "Oh man, this is it. Nah, you can't fuck with Robert, this and that." And I said, "I'll make it look easy." And what did I do? I made it look easy. I just feel that way for this one as well. I don't think Yoel is the guy that's fought someone who just stays in front of him. He stays in front of him, and he likes a punching bag, and that I am not.
What do you think is the most dangerous thing about Yoel? And he's almost this mythical character when it comes to the third round. Like he's sort of, he doesn't do a whole lot, and then he does something crazy, and he's very explosive. What do you think is the most dangerous thing about him?
I think that he'll lull you into a false sense of security where you feel like you can kind of coast, and you're in control, and he'll just explode. So you have to stay on with him at all points. You can't just drift off. You can't just coast in your mind. Well, also his wrestling, I think, should be a strong suit because he's an Olympian and all this shit. But he rarely ever uses it. So I'm hoping he uses it this fight. I want to see what that wrestling's about.
And obviously, we loved the walk down over in Melbourne in the stadium, the dance that you did with your friends. Are you planning anything special for this one? And will the Death Note come back out when you're in the octagon?
Things change. I don't like to. I like to keep things fresh, and also for me, you have to understand that the walkout was special and was as impactful as it was because it was unexpected. That's why. So when people expect something, then it doesn't have the same pizzazz. So expect the unexpected when it comes to me.
Well, that's why people tune in. They're always excited to see what happens next. We were speaking to Dana White at UFC 246, as Casper mentioned, and he brought up Jon Jones. He kind of sees the path very similar to what you mentioned. You go through a bunch of contenders in the division, but then he sees that Jon Jones fight in a stadium in Australia or New Zealand. I know you've mentioned Raiders Stadium. Does Australia and New Zealand seem like the right place to have a super fight like that to you, or is Raiders Stadium still the place in your mind that you'd like to see the stadium?
Raiders Stadium would be the one. If it makes dollars, it makes sense. So you just have to make it make sense to Dana. And once you do, then he'll follow suit. Or we can even take it to somewhere like Morocco or somewhere like South Africa. We can definitely do it out here in New Zealand but not Australia. I've already given you guys a stadium show. So
they're pretty gready, Israel. Just letting you know.
We want more. Yeah, exactly. We want more.
That's it. Yeah, I'm taking it all, man.
No, but I think that Raider Stadium would be the one for that. And what did he say? He said something. I saw it on Instagram that by the time he goes to heavyweight, the fight will be. Who gives a fuck about weight? I've never given a fuck about weight. Since when? It's never been a issue for me. I've been a heavyweight in boxing and kickboxing. I'll do it again in MMA. So it's never been an issue about weight. He can try and run to heavyweight, but I'll chase him down. I'll hunt him down if I have to.
See, you'd fight him at heavyweight?
Yeah. Let him go to heavyweight. He can. I said right now I'm still working at middleweight. If he wants to come, he can step the line. If he comes down to middleweight, I've said that already. Well, I'm sure he can't do that because his frame won't let him. So let me do my work. Shut the fuck up, and I'll come see you when it's time.
Well, I was going to say UFC, he's fighting Dominic Reyes next. Are you expecting him to be sending you all sorts of messages and just talking about you during fight week and just trying to build this fight as much as he can while the media is around in Houston?
I don't care. Don't really know. I know when I'm fighting, he tries to talk shit about me while I'm fighting to try and take away the attention from my fight onto him or to try and make it about him for whatever reason. But it's, it's my show. Yeah, but I don't really care. He can do what he does. If Dom wins, good on Dom. Happy for him. And I think he's got a big problem on his hand with Dominic Reyes as well. But if Dom wins, doesn't matter. I'm still coming for that ass.
Israel, I really appreciate the time, man. I know you're sitting in, I think it's Dan's gym, so we'll let you go in a second. But I'm just wondering, obviously Conor McGregor got this big win, just the other week. You guys both under Paradigm. You guys are essentially allies.
GP.
And he keeps sort of talking about fighting in March. I think, he wants to fight March, and that's obviously the card that you're on. Did you kind of get a sense that he was potentially trying to get on that card and sort of, help build, another Paradigm brother, essentially? What would that have meant for you if you guys fought on the same card?
I think when he was talking about it, the fight wasn't signed yet. The fight wasn't signed, sealed, delivered yet. That's why. But yeah, I mean, if he fights on the card, I'd have to be the co-main, if I'm being honest, just based on the stock right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also good for me as well, because the people that come to watch him are gonna watch me whoop ass and be like, holy shit, who is this fly-looking black boy doing all this shit? Like, man, this guy's the man. Let me watch him more. And then, like I said, this is a numbers game, and those numbers are coming for me too. I see them everywhere, straight up.
Anyway,
I gotta go.
Yeah. All right.
That's what you were saying?
No, well, we were going to say, as we wrap up, obviously you versus Yoel Romero, UFC 248, March 7th, 8th in Australia, New Zealand. And, of course, follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Stylebender. Israel, we really appreciate you being able to share Submission Radio 200 with us. It's been a pleasure seeing where you're at now. We can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, 200 episodes and 200 more to come.
You know it. And thank you for the love of the press conference, man. I really appreciate it.
All love.
Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Thanks, Israel. And there you go, guys. Israel Adesanya taking on Yoel Romero at UFC 248. Very, very, very privileged to be able to speak to the man. Perhaps Submission Radio getting a little bit greedy with Israel's time. It's something that I'm going to lose sleep over for weeks, no doubt about it. But absolutely love chatting to the man and love hearing his insight on just his life now, especially since becoming champion and how things have changed. I know it's always fun to talk about fights and break them down and upcoming opponents and all that kind of stuff. And, to a degree, there's that promotional side of things. We're here to promote a fight, essentially. But I love those little stories from Israel about, just the things that you normally wouldn't hear about. Same as Bas Rutten as well on the program earlier on, talking about, tracking down his bullies, his back and forth with certain people. And Ariel Helwani, saying some amazing things before, talking about how he was so mad that he kind of, in his mind, dropped the ball for that interview, that he went to his hotel room and yelled. I love hearing stuff like that. People just being so honest and so open and so vulnerable and pulling the curtain back. I'm really happy that that episode 200 of Submission Radio turned out the way it did. And we got some really, really interesting stories from people. And I hope you guys enjoyed it.
That's right, Cass. So that brings us to the end of the program. A big thank you, Ariel Helwani, absolute legend, icon, Bas Rutten, and of course, the UFC middleweight champion. The man that is, I don't know, I have to say, one of the most exciting things happening in the UFC right now. A man who can't wait to see what happens in his future. He fights Yoel Romero, of course, the UFC 248, Israel Adesanya. Really appreciate his time and appreciate you guys tuning in to the first episode of 2020, the first episode of the decade, and it's episode 200 of Submission Radio. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to tune in to the next episode of Submission Radio, which drops next week. It's great to be back. Have a great week, guys, and thanks for checking out episode 200 of Submission Radio.